trying to think of a word. Hold on.
One word to describe the season.
Ben on a drive. Whoa! Simmons with a left-hand jam.
You know, we're playing so well together.
This show and go Embiid.
I knew from there, this was going to be a special team here.
A triple-double off the bench for Mikal.
All the ups and downs and everything we learned, it's been great.
The start of a new season means many things. A new journey, a new team, but most of all, new expectations. And for the Philadelphia 76ers, there were plenty of those things to go around.
How good can we expect this team to be?
They're probably going to stink.
Ben Simmons is essentially a rookie.
Embiid, who still is a huge question mark. If I were the Sixers, I would trade Embiid.
Joel Embiid is still on a minutes restriction, so let's just pump the brakes a little bit.
This team ain't winning 40 games, even in the miserable East.
You know, our goal is to make the playoffs.
The search for that first win was definitely a challenge, but their time would come soon enough.
We are running tonight from the Little Caesars Arena.
Simmons working over everybody, not to be denied.
The Sixers get their first victory of the season here in Detroit, and Ben Simmons his first career triple-double.
Big wins lead to big moments, and the 76ers had plenty of memorable instances in the early part of the year.
Simmons in the open floor, all the way, and he slams for two! Final score from Toyota Center, the Sixers 115, the Rockets 107. Biggest win to date.
My favorite moment was probably when I had 46 points against the Lakers.
Joel Hans Embiid with a historic performance tonight.
We are running tonight from Wells Fargo Center.
With those same moments of joy also come the growing pains the season presents for a young team.
Wow, that can't be. That can't be. Brett Brown saying the exact same thing. A 25-11 advantage for them in the third.
Coast to coast, and he throws it down. The Sixers drop to 15-19.
The new year brought in many milestones for the team, and representing the NBA abroad in London was a big one.
Here we're in London. It's great for the game, you know, it's great for the kids. I think for the young people, how can all that not add up to being tremendous for our sport?
While the 76ers were abroad, the votes were pouring in for Joel Embiid to be a part of another major NBA event, All-Star Weekend.
Oh, please vote for my man, Joel Embiid. Hashtag NBA vote.
Vote for me.
The first All-Star starter since Allen Iverson? You've got it. The hype is definitely there, along with the anticipation. However, the great teams are the ones that are able to remain focused on the task at hand.
I knew this group was going to be special after Christmas when we really started to stop losing games that we were supposed to win.
That 5-game winning streak right before All-Star break, where we set a goal, we wanted to win all 5. We had 5 home games, and we won all 5.
Here's Ben in the lane. Another reverse by Simmons. A wicked crossover on Oubre.
We just got to keep playing hard, executing, and defending these last couple games.
There it is, and they're loving it at Wells Fargo Center. The first career triple-double for T.J. McConnell.
The first time touching the floor, being contact with my teammates, organization, everything. I know that's something special, and it really is.
To achieve our goal of winning the 5 games at home, it sure makes the holiday a heck of a lot more enjoyable.
I'm just soaking up the moment. I went through so much. When I came back, I was like, man, just go out there and have fun. I just want to say thank you guys for following me. It's time to take care of business for the second part of the season, and I'm excited about it.
The 2018 NBA Draft is now underway. This is 76ers Draft Live, coming to you for hour number 2 from 76ers headquarters here at the training complex in Camden, New Jersey. I'm Brian Seltzer. This is Steve Donahue, head coach at the Ivy League champion, University of Pennsylvania Quakers. Marissa Papilla is over in our social lounge. We'll hear from her in just a little bit. We've got 2 picks that are in. And so far, DeAndre Ayton of the Phoenix Suns, which for the first time in franchise history had the #1 overall pick. And Sacramento, which a lot of people, Steve, thought would kind of set the course for the early stages of this draft, picking Marvin Bagley III out of Duke.
You know, crazy as it is, it's scratch. It's 2 bigs, 2 traditional bigs in a game where we just watched in the NBA where not too many people play bigs. But these 2 may be special, and that's probably what they look at. And both are very similar in a lot of ways. They grew up as teammates, actually, in AAU. Talented around the rim runners, length, athleticism. I think the difference will be, will they be able to play on the perimeter offensively in terms of shooting ball, and can they guard, switch smaller guys? That will determine how successful their teams are, really.
If you've just joined us, we have 1 hour in the books. We talked to a lot of members of the 76ers organization. As we move forward throughout the rest of the night, we're going to go pick by pick, react, talk about it. We want to hear from you on social. Marissa Pill will run down a lot of the reactions and all the engagements that are out there. We're going to have live press conferences, special guests that swing by, so stay tuned. We'll be with you until the very end after pick number 60 is made, and Brett Brown's press conference later on in the evening. Now, we get to a very interesting point right here with the Atlanta Hawks picking number 3, because the name that a lot of people will focus on is arguably the most intriguing name in this year's draft. In 19-year-old, just turned 19 at the end of February, Luka Doncic, who has just been tearing it up overseas in Europe for Real Madrid. All the indicators that you see that he could be pretty special.
Well, the other thing I'll say to you, Brian, is that this may be the spot that trades are made. I don't know if we'll know that, but this is, I'm telling you right now, they're getting calls because he's available. Don't know if there's one up here, but I'm just saying there's calls, because this is, in a lot of people's mind, and honestly, from what I feel, he's the best basketball player right now. So if you want to win right now, he's the best one. The interesting part is Atlanta doesn't want to win right now, so they may be open to discussions.
Why is that the common held belief that Luka Doncic can help you win immediately in the here and now?
Well, first of all, he's still one of the younger guys in the draft. He's played professionally since he was 15 years old. He's going against grown men, not what most of these players are going against. So he's done really well. MVP of the Euro Cup, which is basically the bottom 10 teams in the NBA may not win the Euro Cup. That's how good a level is. And here's your MVP. Now, you can shoot holes in anything, maybe a step slow, maybe not athletic and long enough, but 6'8", can see the floor, tremendous passer, scorer, shooter. And to me, the biggest thing is he hasn't even had access to the infrastructure of United States basketball, weight room, nutrition, all the things that our NBA teams can offer him.
You could welcome a new member to your family in the span of 9 months. For Luka Doncic, he won Eurobasket, as you're talking about, EuroLeague, ACB in Spain, which is widely regarded as the top league over in Europe. And we've got some reports of a breaking news development that the Atlanta Hawks, while they're picking number 3 in the draft right now, and they take Luka Doncic, there's rumblings out there that perhaps it's going to be a pick that is dealt to the Dallas Mavericks. So Dallas could acquire Doncic, and then Atlanta would assume the number 5 spot in the draft. So it just speaks to how coveted of a prospect and how aggressive teams wanted to get in pursuit of the Slovenian.
It's a great move by Dallas. I don't know what it cost them, but Atlanta's not in the mode right now to win. So to drop 2 slots, Dallas gets their pick and Atlanta doesn't get hurt. That's a great move by Dallas.
All right. Nice. So the draft is off and running. The first 3 picks are in. We've got Ayton number 1, Bagley number 2, Doncic number 3. But sounds like there might have been some movement at the 3 spot between the Atlanta Hawks, which held the slot, and the Dallas Mavericks. Marissa Pilla is the 3rd member of our team. She's hanging out in the social lounge.
first-round draft picks is that they had the opportunity to have 2 members of their family walk across stage with them. 2 members of their family also can in that green room with them as well. Get that full experience of what it's like to be drafted into the NBA. Such a cool opportunity for the players' families to share together, but also a great opportunity to coordinate their outfits, as we saw with Wendell Carter tonight and his entire family. They go with this all-black ensemble, lots of Gucci, a great fashion outfits put on display throughout tonight on that green carpet heading into the ceremonies. We had Mikal Bridges, media PA's own, going with the navy printed blazer with black pants, black tie up top, looking really fresh. But then Jaren Jackson wearing what could be the best jacket we've seen all night, a rose gold velvet blazer, something that a lot of people can't top. But then there's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with a full floral outfit. Not too many people can pull this off. That cream floral suit with a pop of color, that green tie, pocket square. A bold move, but a very good fashion statement to make on what could be one of the biggest moments of your professional career. So I know what my favorite is. I gotta go full floral, but Brian, what's your favorite?
Krista, thank you. I think as far as our favorite outfits, I got to tell you, we had TJ McConnell on in the first hour. I think my favorite outfit so far has been
Get
the
TJ back here to
cut.
model that.
Yeah, the European.
Wendell Carter's, whatever he was wearing.
It was an interesting, not interesting bad, but just you know, TJ taking his story was his wife bought him a pair of maybe 5/6 length pants.
European style.
Yeah. All right. Bold selection, but good selection.
I did like the NBA, which is always changing their way they do things to make it better. Parents coming out, guardians, brothers. Just another way to make this Hollywood-like and bring the average fan into the picture. It was great.
Got to give some love and a shout out to Tania Rivers, the head of human resources here at Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment. She walked down the stairway on the stage at Barclays Center with her son, Mikal Bridges, who's a guy who the 76ers had in for an individual workout, one of 2 players that they brought in for a solo workout, in addition to Kevin Knox, who was in the building on Tuesday. So we're getting some more information potentially about the reported trade between the Atlanta Hawks and the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, it looks like Atlanta's going to, Dallas will draft Trae Young, and they'll swap. So Trae Young goes to Atlanta, and Luka Doncic goes to Dallas, which takes on Dirk's role and another 20 years of great foreign player in the league for Dallas.
I hadn't even thought about it at that level yet, but you're right. Dirk Nowitzki said he might be back for another year, but now there could be the star in waiting. You think about that backcourt, if this trade does prove to be true based on the report, you've got Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith Jr., who was the number 9 pick last year.
I think they go well together. I think Dennis Smith is so explosive. And here's a kid you can give the ball to at 6'8", makes everyone better. The teammates will love playing with him. I just think it's the most firm NBA-ready guy in the draft.
Sandwiched in between the potentially dealing Hawks and Dallas, the Memphis Grizzlies, they are on the clock. We'll have a moment. How would you sum up this year's draft class? What are the biggest takeaways, the storylines that you see in this year's talent pool?
Well, first of all, I kind of know what next year looks like. This is much more talented. I mean, there's prospects from 14 to 20 in this day and age of the NBA. 6 really good guards that will all play. So there's 20 players that I think make this draft great. The length in this draft and the talent level in this draft is incredible, even though apparently the league's changing. But what I think people don't realize, these kids have seen this for the last 5 years as well. So they've learned to play on the perimeter, even more than their college coach would allow them. So Mo Bamba is a skilled big, even though he didn't do much of it at Texas at this point in his career.
Yeah, there was an article out there recently just about how some of these big men prospects have been training themselves since the end of the college season to get ready for this. Mo Bamba, a name that who knows could go to the Grizzlies at 4. Michael Porter Jr. has to be one of the more enticing subplots.
No doubt.
Just the talent that he showed in high school. Obviously only played 3 games at Missouri last year. There was a hip injury that came out last week, but he has talent that he's shown. It's now a question of where he might go.
If that injury is not the issue, and he plays a normal year, I think he's the first pick of the draft. That's how talented I thought he was when I saw him through his 3 years of high school. Like, incredible skill level, poise, IQ, size, steps in and plays. Now, is that injury preventing teams from taking him? That's what you don't know right now, because he should be next. If not, it could be Zhaire Jackson, another big from Michigan State, steps out. Mo Bamba. I think they're going to still go big and go with one of those players, and then obviously Michael Porter Jr. if the injury isn't a big issue.
So we should probably bring some of the viewers and watchers in on this. Division I coach, you're seeing a lot of these guys, I would think, over the last couple of years on the recruiting trail, whether it's maybe you're trying to get some of these guys when they first break on the scene, or they have teammates on their squads, they play for good teams. So how much of a familiarity base do you have?
Nowadays, with all the sneaker tournaments, these kids are in your eyes from sophomore year on in one gym. So you get to know what they're like and see them at an 8 o'clock game on Sunday. But you get to know them, and they're common names to us in the coaching ranks, and maybe not the fans in general, but we know them.
Zhaire Jackson Jr., whose dad played with the 76ers back in the mid-1990s. He is the number 4 pick. Very talented Michigan State team this year with Miles Bridges on it, of course. Zhaire Jackson goes number 4, and just looking at some of his numbers last year, they were pretty stellar, and as you said, there's a lot that he can do that can translate.
You know, I think he's the youngest guy in the draft, if not the second youngest. Outstanding shooter, but probably the best defensive player in terms of a big. He switches off well, can guard multiple positions. I don't think he's ready to score in this league, but he's so young and so talented. I think there's a chance that he really becomes a great player. There's nothing that you can't not like about him at this age.
4th rated defensive player in the Big Ten last year, the conference Defensive Player of the Year, 5th in the nation in block shots, and he's a guy who you talk to a lot of draft experts, they love. So right now it seems like things are kind of holding as we would expected through 4 picks, as we had Ayton go number 1 to the Phoenix Suns, Bagley number 2 to the Sacramento Kings. There's the report of a trade that would have Luka Doncic. He was drafted by the Hawks, going to Dallas. Dallas, which is up on the clock now, could pick Trae Young, send him to Atlanta, and then number 4, Zhaire Jackson Jr. Just continue the conversation about the dynamic of this year's draft. For me, and by no means would I even remotely call myself someone who could be viewed as an expert on the draft. Still stay with us, we have great insight. But the last couple of years it seemed like for some reason there was more juice. Maybe it was just because the Sixers were so high up on the draft board, whereas this year I feel like the potential for star power, like people saw Ben Simmons and they're like, wow, that could be like a transformative player for the next couple of years. I'm not sure if I heard rightly or wrongly like the transformative tag applied to some of these guys quite as much, but the depth, as you were talking about, seems to be there, no doubt.
Well, I also think the point that you have to look at is the league has changed dramatically. Now, smaller, relatively speaking, players can help change a franchise because everyone's playing differently. So now that allows you to not just, if you don't get one of these tall, athletic guys and one good guard that's available in the draft, you're out of it. Well, that's not the case anymore in the NBA. And you just think about it. Think about how Golden State built theirs with a 7th pick, Steph Curry, 11th pick, Johnson, and a second rounder in Green. So I think now the NBA looks at differently. That's why I said 14 through 20, even 26 with the Sixers, are players that could be really good players in the NBA pretty quickly.
And as we segue the conversation to talking about the 76ers, we'll do that in just a moment as we now move along to the next phase of what we've got.
Best dancer, give it to coach.
Robert Covington.
Hey, Robert Covington.
He dance.
Nobody really. Timmy is forcing him all the time, but like he's not a good dancer.
Myself.
Timmy thinks he's a good dancer. He wants me to tell you this, but I think if Dario wants, he can be good best dancer.
I would say Justin. There's a couple of guys that honestly they really can dance.
Rich. I'm gonna get that to Timothy.
Robert Covington. Randomly, you can just catch him dancing to no music, so you know he's a good dancer.
Robert Covington.
Me.
It really is quite the routine that some of the 76ers go through during pregame. I mean, Amir Johnson and Justin Anderson this past season had it on lockdown. So there's some viable candidates there, for sure. We are working our way through the first 5 picks of the NBA draft. The Dallas Mavericks just selected Trae Young, but as we've been talking about, as you've probably seen, likely going to be some reported movement between the Hawks and the Mavericks that would send Doncic to Dallas and Young to Atlanta. As we're about to talk about the 76ers, first pick up, if they hold it, is number 10. What do you think about the number 10 pick in general in the context of the talent available in this year's draft?
Well, as I said to you before, I think so far this is great for the Sixers. It's going scratch, so whatever they decided they're going to do, it's still there. If they want to move up or move back, it's still an option. Nothing's changed that. But there's a lot of players that can really help them right away, and they're available to them. It's exciting.
And that's the fun philosophical debate for the 76ers right now. Do you go for potential? Do you go for more immediate fit? And now the lay of the land with the roster is entirely different than what it was even this time last year when the Sixers were coming off a 28-win season. So that, we have the war room. We're kind of sandwiched our set on one side of the second practice court here inside the 76ers training complex. Over to our back left is the coaches room, the coaches conference center, and that's acting as the war room tonight. Brett Brown, the acting head of basketball operations for the 76ers. We saw members of the ownership group going in and out. So the curtain's drawn, we can't see in, but we're halfway through.
Hold on.
It's like, get the tin cups with the straws, see if we can get something. So certainly activity, you would think, especially now as we're halfway towards the Sixers' first pick picking up. This makes us wonder, so the Sixers presumably picking number 10 in the draft. All-time number 10 picks.
I think there's an obvious one, Sels. Paul Pierce went 10th. That's amazing, isn't it?
Truth.
The truth. And the Hall of Fame, most likely career. So that's how great. But we talked about others. C.J. McCollum, recently from Lehigh, a 10th pick. Pretty good.
Yes, he would be on my list.
Paul George on your list?
He would probably be above C.J.
Wow, yeah, me too.
Okay.
Who else?
Well,
check your. It gets got some.
All right,
talent.
so here's maybe, not to go total takeage here. I mean, Horace Grant. I think the body of work. I don't know if I would.
Winning championships.
Yeah, a couple championships.
More talented than Joe Johnson?
Not more talented than Joe Johnson, though. No.
I don't know what I thought we were saying most talented, but.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is the question. I guess it's how you just want to define the body of work in your career. And
Caron Butler's another name.
Yes, very good. Some local products or guys with local ties.
Johnny Dawkins, obviously,
yes.
He played for the Sixers, was a 10th pick.
Yep. Pooh Richardson. Was one.
Ben Franklin High School, UCLA.
There you go.
A great player. I love Pooh Richardson growing up.
Who else we got? I feel like there's one.
Lindsey Hunter, a great shooter. Eddie Jones.
Yes,
from Temple.
Eddie Jones. Thank you.
That?
That's right.
Some glory years there for John Chaney and his squad. Willie Anderson from Georgia. But all these guys had great careers no matter what. I mean,
no, they're productive, contributing NBA players, which I think goes back to at least opinion here. Tonight, if at the very least the 76ers play how it all unfolds, go with the flow of the draft, stay at 10, the odds are they're going to get a player who projects to be someone who can contribute.
Well, think about it. Very rarely does a team that was third in the East get the 10th best player in the next draft.
Right.
And this is a huge pick. It's very exciting for us because it could just take another step in your development here, but you don't usually get that opportunity. And with that, obviously, we know the excitement around the room for free agencies and all that goes into this. Obviously, it's a big night for us.
No
for
question.
us, I'm already us.
Listen, you are Delaware Valley,
I'm longer
Delaware
Sixer
County.
fan than you've been.
Because it brings into the focus some people may say, well, at number 10, okay, the way the Sixers roster is shaped right now, there may not be available minutes for someone to come in right away, get a starting spot, but that's why you play the practices and the preseason games. And who would have thought that Jason Tatum, not to bring up the subject of the Boston Celtics, but who would have necessarily thought that he would have impacted things for Boston to the extent?
I'm with you. And there's players as good as Jason Tatum who were in college that are coming out in this draft that may be available later than 10 even.
Yeah, speaks to some of the depth. We got the pick in at number 6. Speaking about guys with local ties, the Orlando Magic. They go to West Town, tutored, mentored, developed by the great Seth Berger, Mo Bamba.
How about that? Mo Bamba. Now, I remember I saw him the first time, and he came over to Seth, and they had a private workout, and you see this 7-foot kid with long arms, long legs. You thought, oh, he's probably just a shot blocker. He's much more than that. Great skill, handles the ball. I think you'll see someone that really develops his game as he goes along in his career. But he's someone I think will surprise people that saw him in college as soon as next year. Because I do think he's someone that can play on the perimeter. Incredible rim runner, 7'10" wingspan. That's, in a lot of ways, he's the future of the NBA. One of those guys in the middle who's just running to the rim or popping out.
And it brings to the forefront one of the qualities of this year's draft, especially at the top end. There are some freakish physical specimens in this year's draft.
It is, and he's one of them, obviously.
Yeah.
But DeAndre Ayton, it's crazy. Bagley, long, athletic. It's hard to imagine they're in the same class. I think this is something, even though people say the NBA has changed dramatically, there's still an advantage of being big over small, or not as big and long, if you're skilled. And I think what these organizations are betting on is that these kids are skilled enough, and they bring incredible length and athleticism.
I'm trying to think of a team that might be on the rise in the NBA who has a big man who can do a lot of different things, run end-to-end, protect the rim, stroke a three. Oh, the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, how about it?
Yeah.
And I don't know if everyone anticipated Joel Embiid being this dynamic all around. Handing the ball off, making assists, shooting the three, running rim to rim, switching on ball screens. And he's able to make that transition. And I think he's just beginning to show what he can do.
Starting to get there. We are creeping up on pick number 10 in the draft. That is the scheduled first slot for the Philadelphia 76ers. Having a lot of fun hanging out here on Draft Live. Over in our social lounge, we've got Marissa Pill. What's up, Marissa?
On some of the great fashion moments happening tonight in New York, but as luck would have it, the draft falls on a Thursday, which means we are also being blessed by some pretty fantastic throwback Thursdays from some of the guys around the league sharing their draft night moments. We have Davis taking first overall, then just a few picks later, Bradley Beal getting his name called, telling everyone to never stop dreaming. But then just 2 years ago, we're taking a look back at Dragon Bender rocking the bow tie, Commissioner Adam Silver. But if you look next to them, that was way back in 1995 when Kevin Garnett was taken by the Timberwolves. Bender wasn't even born when KG entered the league, so it's pretty incredible to look at all these different draft classes, all these memories these men have made over the years, looking back at this moment as the one that changed their professional career. So many great life-changing moments still to come in the 2018 NBA draft. So for now, I'll send it back to you, Brian.
Kevin Knox could jump, dude.
Oh.
He could be.
He looks like it. All right, so we are back and working our way through as we get closer and closer to pick number 10. All right, so now we can tell you the guys who are picked. Ayton, Bagley, Doncic, Jackson Jr., Young, Bamba. There's going to be a flip between Doncic and Young. But now things are starting to get interesting, Steve. We've got the Chicago Bulls at number 7. We've got the Cavaliers at number 8, the Knickerbockers at number 9, your 76ers at number 10. A lot of people on the outside think, well, the Sixers, they would love to possibly get a wing player. All right, well, you've got Wendell Carter, who's a big, and then you've got all four wings, Porter, both Bridges, and Knox. Someone's going to be there, you would think.
I think the whole intrigue is what is happening to Michael Porter Jr.? I'm telling you, if he's healthy, there's not a more talented guy in the draft. So could he fall to 10? And we're going to have to put our glass against the window over there. But this is pretty exciting because there's really good players that fit what the Sixers need. Both Bridges, even Colin Sexton being there, but Knox, obviously someone who can shoot, play multiple positions. Third youngest guy in the draft. And then Wendell Carter Jr. is one of the most talented kids in the draft. Versatile. Probably doesn't fit necessarily what the Sixers are thinking, but he's probably going to go before them. So
what do you think Wendell Carter in terms of attention? What would he have gotten if he weren't Marvin Bagley's teammate?
I think he would have been a 20. If he came to Penn like we recruited him and came in the Ivy League, would have helped us win a championship. Oh wait, we won a championship. Honestly, he's as talented an offensive basketball player in the draft. I think it's a credit to him that he accepted his role at Duke and did what he could to help that team win. That's a fact. But he's going to be 20-10 in this league. Like, he's really talented. And he's a better shooter from three than he's shown in college. Once again, it's something I think he decided not to do to help his team.
Chicago Bulls are up next with pick number 7. It's going to start to get really interesting after this pick because we've got a pretty good profile of just what might be available for the 76ers at number 10. To reset some of the storylines from this past couple-week stretch when the Sixers had players in for the draft workouts, both Bridges, Miles, and Mikal were in. Miles first 2 Mondays ago, and then Mikal came in the day after for a private solo workout. And Kevin Knox, who a lot of people have viewed as an extremely talented, versatile player with a lot of potential. As you said, Steve, one of the younger players in the draft. He's not going to turn 19 until the middle of August. Sixers brought him in last Friday. He went down to Charlotte, and Brett Brown had a busy day on Friday, wanted to spend more time with Kevin Knox. So Sixers called up Knox's agent, and Knox came back for a solo individual workout on Tuesday afternoon. So the wing talent sounds like it's pretty good.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about Kevin Knox is you have to put in to perspective, he did not have a very good year at Kentucky. It was disappointing. So he was in 15, 20, 25 range. All of a sudden people see him work out. And that's another piece of this. But apparently it was off the charts.
Chicago Bulls take Wendell Carter Jr., that pick just in. So now the 76ers, only 2 more slots to go until the Sixers are on the clock, and all the wings are there. 4 of them, 4 wings, the top 4 wings in the draft are going to be sitting there.
It's interesting, 6 out of 7 are 6'10" and above in a league that's getting away from that. But I think you got to look deeper into what these guys are now. They're not your typical 6'10" power forward.
Right.
All these kids understand that they have to shoot from beyond the arc, switch on ball screens. They worked on it. They're all things they're going to have to get better at. But you're going to see the league evolve. And it's not going to be a bunch of small guys. The league's going to evolve. How can we utilize longer athletic guys? That makes you better than a team that typically would have less size and length if there's the same talent level, you would think.
So now we've got another fascinating situation with the Cleveland Cavaliers at pick number 8. We talk about the importance of these high picks for any team, but you think about what could unfold later on in the summer, who the Cavaliers would probably want to retain in terms of his services going forward, and just what this number 8 pick could mean and how it might fit in their future plans.
They're probably the hardest to understand because in reality they need a point guard. But I don't think number 23 thinks they need a point guard. But going forward, is 23 their guy. So I think they need a point guard. It might be Alexander from Kentucky. I don't think they take a wing. It might be someone who's dynamic at the point guard spot that can score off the ball, like Sexton.
Right.
Colin Sexton's an incredible scorer. Not a great shooter, but he's going to be a scorer in this league. That he will. Is that someone that, you know, I'm sure in the back of their mind, they're probably thinking, what can we do to keep 23 here, and what would LeBron like to play with, but they also have to go forward if he's not there.
And just how much of a voice or input would LeBron James have in Cleveland's decision at number 8? So yeah, a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's been, it seems like, speeding up draft boards as of late, spent 1 year at Kentucky. You've got Colin Sexton there as well, and of course Michael Porter Jr., who a lot of people at one point thought would be the top talent in this year's age group, the 2 Bridges, and then there's Kevin Knox. So right now the 76ers, things shaping up to be pretty intriguing. We got your thoughts on Michael Porter Jr., a little bit on Kevin Knox. Let's get your analysis, your thoughts on the Bridges, one of whom you had the chance to see the last 3 years.
So Mikal is, and I've saw him in high school, and if you ask me if he'd be in this position today, I'd be very surprised. Give him a ton of credit. Incredible work ethic. I think when Bill talked about bringing in someone that fits what they're about, that's him. And, incredible teammate. I'll give you a quick story. Villanova guys come and play our guys in June. Just pick up, but it's our guys against their guys. And other teams do. Temple, LaSalle, Drexel. Villanova comes in, it's June 25th, and you would think it was a national championship game. Those guys are lined up, they're all geared up in the same stuff, they're stretching it the same, they're getting on each other. It just speaks to what their culture's like. But Mikal is all business. An elite shooter now. The most impressive thing that I thought he did this year was, without having a great usage rate, which meaning he's not getting a ton of times at the end of the clock, he still was one of their highest efficient players. And that's something the Sixers need. If you think about it, we have so many parts. We love a guy to be efficient with less touches. And I think that's what he brings. Miles Bridges is probably a more advanced physical player, even though he's younger. He's probably a better rebounder, multiple defender, although Mikal is a good defender. Probably a better arsenal in terms of getting to the foul line and scoring. Probably not as nearly as good a shooter though.
A lot of talent available at the wing spot. The 76ers, should they decide to stay at 10, looks like they could have some pretty intriguing options. We are standing by and waiting for pick number 8 in this year's draft. Great to be getting the analysis of Steve Donahue as we work our way through 76ers Draft Night Live. No surprises as of yet. And for the Sixers, this is, as we start to zero in on this pick, it's going to be so intriguing and revealing in some ways to see, do they go fit right away? Do they go potential, something like that? Would they do something with the pick? They said in recent weeks that all options are on the table. And the other thing they talked about, and you listen, if Brett Brown is at the head of this thing, which he is right now, it fits his personality profile. He said, we're going to be bold, we're going to be aggressive. That doesn't necessarily mean doing something completely off the wall, but a team that's going to be confident and assertive in its decision making.
I think, I still think the most interesting part of this is what's going on with Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
So our team's reading those medical reports and saying there's something wrong. And why is he fallen?
Sixers have talked about the 3-and-D type player that they could be looking for. Brett Brown mentioned that that's not everything that the team is seeking as far as a potential option at the number 10 spot, but certainly based on how things panned out in the playoffs, that wouldn't hurt. The 8th pick is in, and
Colin
Cleveland
Sexton.
Take Colin Sexton.
He's a dynamic scorer. Like, people are going to be surprised. Like, Cleveland gets him. Once again, this is a team that won the East, and he's one of the most talented guards, if not the most talented guard in this draft, and they just got him. To me, that's a plus for Cleveland if they want to keep LeBron James. Colin Sexton can go get you 25, 30 points in an NBA game. If you remember the crazy game he had.
I was just going to say, yeah.
3 against 5, right?
It's unreal.
Almost did it.
Had 40 points in that game, and here's a guy who also played under a former NBA head coach.
That's right.
And player in Avery Johnson. He has the head job at Alabama. So now the New York Knicks will be up next, and what do you know? Mikal Bridges, Miles Bridges, Kevin Knox, and Michael Porter Jr. are all still on the board.
This Michael Porter stuff is really crazy, because that's a healthy Michael Porter, and I think he's the first pick of this draft. And here he is, and you know they don't take him. He's down. Is it going to come up? I don't think the Knicks take him either.
Because that's a real interesting question. At what point, if you're a team that's at this stage of the draft order, do you start reconfiguring your plans and your mindset? You might not have anticipated that Porter Jr. would be there. And maybe the Knicks had player A and the 76ers had player B. But if this is something that develops and pans out, like you said, there's obvious talent.
I don't know this. Did he even work out here?
Porter Jr. did not, no. He was at the Combine, 76ers.
Did a pro day.
Certainly, yeah, I've had a chance to see him. He had to, well, the real situation that emerged was that for his second pro day, he had to call it off because of the hip issue. And there were reports, as you said, Steve, that the agent for Michael Porter Jr., Mark Bartelstein, had been sending teams in the lottery phase of the draft medical reports, most recent medical reports, to make sure that any anxieties would be calmed or assuaged. But now the Knicks, a team that they have some pieces there. Obviously, Kristaps Porzingis. They picked up Emmanuel Mudiay. They have Frank Ntilikina as well. You know,
it's an interesting pick. I think, honestly, I don't think they thought he'd be here either. And I think the Sixers are kind of probably scrambling now, because I think they like the guys we talked about. Bridges is then Knox, and will Porter be there?
I'll be honest, I kind of forgot what the, you know, loosen the collar of the shirt a little bit, what the intrigue and suspense and anticipation is like when the team that you're zeroed in on is not number 1 or number 2 or number 3 in the draft. I mean, you got to go back to, what was it? It was 2013, right? Yeah, right before Brett Brown was hired, when the Sixers did not have a top 3 pick in the draft.
About that. This is pretty exciting, though. They got a player, in my opinion, that's going to help them.
Well, that's, so that was my next question.
Yeah.
So right now we're at the stage where the depth of talent is enough, where you feel pretty good that this is someone who may not have to necessarily bide his time.
There's been no wings picked.
Right.
So even if the unfortunate thing would have been if teams ahead of them started taking all these talented wings that really are a fit, that would have been kind of frustrating. Then you're going to take the most talented guy left. I think they're going to get a very talented player that fits what they need.
So the surprise of this draft so far is a player who is yet to be taken, Michael Porter Jr. New York Knicks are on the clock at number 9, 76ers, their longtime rival, sitting at number 10 after that. As we take a look at some of the things that the Sixers could contemplate, they like a space, a length, a switchable, a 3-and-D type player. Would you have said coming in, well, I won't lead the question, what would you say was the deepest position in terms of talent in this year's draft coming in?
Yeah, it was
the wing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here we are.
And there's a ton of guys, especially now. The wing that's used now in the NBA is anyone that plays the guard and has any kind of length that can guard 1, 2, 3, and possibly switch on to a 4 and play small ball. That opens up a wide variety of players. And this draft is absolutely loaded at that spot. And none of them have been taken. So, I mean, I think for the Sixers, this is a great scenario. Now, there could be teams offering them a lot to get to that spot because Michael Porter Jr. is still available.
Right.
And they can still maybe get their player 5 slots from now.
If he starts to fall even more, that could then trigger some movement that picks up right away. Did you watch, as a junkie, did you go back and watch? I know you were busy with your own NCAA tournament affairs, but did you watch Michael Porter in the 3 games that he played? Did you check out any of the footage?
I did. I was curious as everyone else, and it wasn't good. It just, he looked like he was trying to prove that he was a better player, and it probably hurt him a little bit. His numbers weren't good. He didn't help his team win. But a lot of this has to do, that's a piece of the evaluation. I mean, there's a long times that people saw him play at a very high level. He was the best high school player I saw, bar none, 2 summers ago.
And it was that obvious.
Yeah, and I think everyone would agree with that. And he helped his team win, which was an average AAU team in the Nike circuit, and they went to the they won the championship. So he's got a lot of great qualities.
We are awaiting eagerly whom the New York Knicks pick at number 9. Michael Porter Jr., just to give you the timeline on him, he hurt himself versus Iowa State back in November, returned in March against Georgia, and then he was in the tournament in the game against Florida State. The Knicks take Kevin Knox. There was thought that the Knicks really liked Kevin Knox, who the Sixers had in for 2 workouts. The solo workout on Tuesday, there was actually a reporter who covers the Knicks beat who came down, asked a lot of questions about what Knox took away from his experience, said he had a good conversation with David Fizdale. He felt pretty good about all of his workouts, but he thought New York went well, much like he did with the 76ers here. So Kevin Knox is the first wing to go. We'll get to highlights on him in a moment, but really quick, this means both Bridges, Michael Porter Jr. there for the 76ers, or whomever else they might have in mind.
Whew, unbelievable. And I've, you know, with the new coaching there and Tisdale wanting a physical player that can play multiple spots, that fits Knox. But I'm telling you, Knox wasn't on the top 20 when this draft process started at the end of the season. There was a question whether he was going to come out. And he's one that, if anybody won the pre-draft workouts, it's him. Now, the next guy is, I mean, this Michael Porter's, you know, who knows? And do the Sixers have interest in that? Now, there's, in particular, because we've been down the injury path already. Sure. And I'm sure they have the medical records that everyone else has. But we also, I think Embiid was an issue, and that helped us.
There are cases you could look at both ways, where it would work in a team's favor or it wouldn't. So let's just play let's imagine what's going on inside the 76ers War Room right now game, which is just off to the back left from us. You got to think the phone's burning up. Because there have to be teams that want to move up, regardless of what the 76ers want to do. There got to be teams that want to move up.
Yeah, and I think they're listening. I think it makes sense. If he's not what they want, a lot of teams do want him, unless that medical, poor kid, maybe the medical's that bad, but why would they, unless, you don't know, do they trust the information given by his agent, Mark Bartelstein?
So the 76ers about 3.5 minutes away from their pick, but then also, so we talk about the temptation potentially of Michael Porter Jr., but what about the fantastic story it would be for the homegrown product, Mikal Bridges, to be here?
And I think all that fits, and I think it's great. I also think he is a great fit here. He is a great fit. He's someone that would come in and be an integral part of what they're doing, what they need, keep exactly how they're attacking, to adjust. There's a lot to be said. They got to make the decision based on, is this the right fit? Is he the right guy? Is it the right talent? There's a lot of talented pieces out there they probably didn't anticipate making this decision. Because I think they were excited about Knox too. There's no doubt.
And the irony is that the 76ers are 9 slots back in the draft than they were the last 2 years. But in some ways, you could say they're still going to have their pick of their choice of players they expected would be there at number 10. So it could be a Mikal Bridges, it could be a Miles Bridges, it could be a Michael Porter Jr., someone who we aren't even talking about at this point. We should say we're not entirely sure when Brett Brown is going to speak tonight. He'll definitely speak at the end of the night, and we'll carry that press conference. However, the other thing about it is he might come out of the war room after pick number 10. We could hear from him then, so stand by after the 76ers make their pick. Starting to feel it, Steve, a little bit.
If you ask me, I think they're still going to stick to their guns. I think they liked the local Wildcat the whole time. I think he really excites them for what they're building and fits what we need. Elite shooter, great length, ability to switch. I do think it's the right guy, and that would be my gut. The Michael Porter thing is absolutely something with the medical. So I don't think they want to deal with that in this point of their development as an organization.
Something where the 76ers are certainly intimately familiar with Mikal Bridges, as we talked about. His mom is the head of HR for the franchise. He played just down the road. There is intimate knowledge between the 76ers coaching staff and the Wildcats coaching staff. Hey, on an off night when the Sixers aren't playing, they can just drive down to the pavilion and check out Mikal. And he's also, in addition to the skill package, he has the pedigree of a winner. He's won 2 national titles, and as you talked about earlier, carries himself like such a professional.
Yeah, I think he's, and you know, listen, he's a little older, which is nice in our development. We don't have a 19-year-old. You have a 21 or 22. He's one of the older guys in the draft. That's a plus, in my opinion. Maturity. This is a team that won 52 games. We want to win more. And here's an older piece that fits what you need, that's very talented.
And he, wherever he goes, someone who speaks to the, we talked about this in the first hour, just the strength of Philadelphia as a basketball city, the type of pipeline that it has proven to be. We're in the final seconds as the 76ers are just now about 10 seconds away from making the, we would think, as long as they stay there, the 10th pick in the draft. It was a phenomenal season this past year. 52 wins, second round of the playoffs. Who can help them next as they continue to build this thing? They believe they have more to do. Sixers, they've relied on the draft in the past, and we are seconds away from
button up
finding
there,
out.
Sels.
How about that? Mikal Bridges, the hometown product, number 10 pick for the Philadelphia 76ers.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty special, huh? For that family?
Unreal. Incredible.
That's a dream for sure.
What a story. His mom works 10 steps away. She's in the building, and he's a kid who grew up in the suburbs, played for a city squad, and he's now a Philadelphia 76er.
That's great. And listen, as I said, he was an unheralded of recruit, redshirted his freshman year, and now he's a 10th pick of the draft playing for his hometown team, the Sixers.
As we take a look at some of the footage of Mikal Bridges this past season. All right, Steve, give us the rundown. We talked about it a little bit. Hit me again with everything you like about Mikal Bridges.
All right, the first thing, and we'll talk about the physical basketball things. He's a catch and shoot guy, which we need that here. It's an automatic. He's got great range. His size allows him to get it off without getting anybody to defend it. His ability with his length to guard 1, 2, 3, and 4 in this league. And maybe not right away, but he's someone I think will develop into a scorer if you forget about him. Incredible potential, and I think the makeup is second to none, and he fits what you need if you're a 52 win team that's looking to take another step. Here's the most talented guy at that position that fits what you need.
Over behind us, 76ers War Room, you got to think is a happy place. You could certainly, and we'll probably be able to ask this of someone at some point from the team, but you could make the argument there is not a prospect the 76ers knew better out of this group than Mikal Bridges. All the background you want to see, all the live in-person scouting you want to see, he was right there at Villanova the entire time. So if they stayed there, they made their pick. You have to think they knew what they were
what's
getting.
interesting about that? Sometimes when that happens, you see the warts too, and it turns you off. Unlike other NBA teams don't get to know all this stuff, Sixers had the ability to get turned off, as funny as that sounds.
Right.
They didn't. They saw what they liked, and he continued to show them that he was the right pick.
Kid who grew up a huge fan of Tracy McGrady, went to Great Valley High School, then to Villanova. His cousin is our good friend here at the 76ers, Devon Givens of 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm looking over at the radio position, and Devon's over there hosting the show live. I think we're going to be able to speak with him a little bit later on. A terrific story, but the bottom line is, the Sixers aren't in the business. I mean, listen, if you follow this team and you watch Brett Brown, the Sixers aren't in the business of making a sentimental choice. They want winners, and if they didn't think Mikal Bridges could help them win and get to the goal of a championship, he was not going to be the guy.
This is all really nice, but you're absolutely right. If this wasn't a stone cold killer that they think he can become in this league, they're not taking the pick. But as I said, it's very rare that you're the third pick in the East in the playoffs, and you get the 10th pick of the draft. That's exactly what you need.
All right, well, Mikal Bridges was in with the 76ers for a workout on June 12th. It was a solo session, and afterwards had the chance to catch up with the 76ers' newest draft pick. Probably aren't too many potential lottery picks who get to knock out an individual pre-draft workout and then say hi to mom in the very same place. But one of the many things that distinguishes Mikal Bridges, how did it go today?
It went really well. You know, they pushed me. It was fun though. It was testing me and see, you know, my conditioning and see how I am as a player. I mean, you gotta be mentally tough for it. You know, you're gonna get tired, and they know that. It's a matter of what you do when you're tired. You're gonna give up, or you're going, you know, keep trying to make shots. And I mean, just, you know, going through Nova, that's how I was built, you know, built mentally tough, and came in here, you know, get a little tired, you know, suck it up and just keep getting through it.
Impressions of Coach Brown? Did you have a chance to talk with him?
Yeah, he's a really cool guy, and I mean, you can tell that he's about it, you know, he's about winning, he's about defending and playing hard, and I mean, that's the same thing at Nova, and, you know, I love that.
You probably have a pretty decent sense of what this organization was about, but being here today, what extra did that add to your perception of the way the Sixers work?
And I know that I'm a pretty good fit for this team, offensively and defensively. You know, they love to play defense. That's what Coach loves to do, and I mean, I pride myself in that. So, just going in there, knowing that I fit well with the team, and you know, I like the things that they do.
Mikal Bridges, the newest 76er, being able to be added to a core that features Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, Dario Saric. I mean, those are just homegrown talent that we're talking about. Forget about roster additions, that sort of thing via free agency. I mean, that is, strip everything else away. Such a promising young core, obviously Robert Covington, TJ McConnell, to build off of.
It's really exciting. I mean, the young players, the style play, the playoff success, and obviously, you know what, I'll say this, the playoff failure. There's no better motivation in life than failure. And I think this group will handle it that way. And now, not missing a step and bringing in a piece that really helps. And listen, we have another good player to add. We got 26 pick, or a trade. Exciting time to be a Philadelphia 76er fan.
And the thing that you got to like about Mikal is he just, as he said in that interview, he got better each year. He had a specific plan going into each offseason, which first one was use the redshirt year to bulk up and be physical. Second year was contribute off the bench with energy and defense. The year after that, become more of a leader and a scorer. Followed the plan, and I mean, not only are you a current Big Five coach, you've been around forever, assistant at Penn, such close ties to the city. What has Jay Wright been able to do to help develop talent like this? Because this could just be the first of potentially 4 #1 picks, that first-round picks, that is, that Villanova has tonight in a perfect world.
I think it's obviously a credit to what he's doing, but most importantly, I think it tells you that he picked the right kids. He recruited the right people. These weren't these projections on these players when they came out of high school. These are 3- and 4-year guys. Guy who two of them redshirt tonight that are going to be drafted, Dante being the other. It just speaks volumes to, wow, the culture that they built up there and the work they put in. It's really, it hasn't been done too many places in all of college basketball to win 2 out of 3 years a championship with the personnel that came in ranked the way they were. I think for me, it's a motivating piece to know that you can do it this way. You can work hard, get a group of guys that are willing to get better, have a dream of playing in the NBA, and then win championships at the same time.
76ers with Mikal Bridges. We've got Marissa Pilla in our social lounge. She's hanging out there. If you want to react, express your excitement. I mean, this is a terrific story, but also, as we mentioned, a terrific player. Michael Porter continues to slip down. The draft is now at the 12th pick as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes to the Charlotte Hornets at number 11.
That might be a trade. That might be Phoenix looking for a point guard.
There you go. All right.
That's the word.
All right.
So
we can only speculate.
He's got a
on
heck of a
words.
jacket too. That's a heck. Kind of fits the Charlotte colors. But listen, he's an interesting story. He was probably the 6th ranked player in the class last year for Kentucky. Non-starter at the beginning of the year. Ends up being their best player by the end of the year and just jumped in the NBA's minds for a point guard that the NBA is looking for now. Can really penetrate, get his own, but runs a team. And got good length, good size, but he runs a team. But he really knows how to play the game and can still score.
We've seen players with the 76ers, in particular, let's say, a guy like Robert Covington, guys who have some length and tenacity defensively, what they can do disruptively. And you think about what Mikal Bridges could become with his length and how versatile he could be. And that was the lasting impression of the Boston Celtics series in what Boston was able to do with their guys on the wing.
I'm with you. And listen, the Sixers were a very good defensive team this year. Top 5 in the NBA.
The 2.
Right. And then you still have Embiid as a center with great length. Your Simmons as your point guard, the size there. Covington as a wing, and now you're adding another athletic wing that not only does that, but on the offensive end can really shoot it. That's kind of what we needed.
And we should talk about that there's, and this is no disrespect to anyone else, I mean, Kevin Knox has shown a stroke. Miles Bridges perhaps not quite there as some of the other wings. I mean, Mikal Bridges put up over 233s and he shot above 43%. I mean, that's a sample size. That is a legit sample size.
And as I said, I go back to it again, his usage rate was 3rd highest on his team. So what that tells you is when you have Simmons and Embiid going, it's not a guy that has to have the ball in his hands to get loose, to try to fill out, to isolate. He's not that. And nor do you need that. You need someone that when the ball gets kicked to him, because they overhelped on those other 2 guys, he can make shots with his length.
So where positionally, in this age of positionless hoops, do we see Mikal possibly being a fit? And we're not just talking about, it could be any type of lineup. What positions do you see him potentially playing?
So initially, I think I'll look at it this way. I think there's got to be 2 other firm ball handlers on the court. 3 or 4, whatever, but there's got to be 2. He's not ready to be your second best, and that's, I don't think that's an issue with the NBA, but that's what he is. I think eventually you're going to say you got a point guard, you have him as your 2, and then you can do whatever you want. But right now, I think he's your 3rd option as a handler. The beauty of him is I think he guards 1 through 3 easily, and there's going to be times, and Villanova switched everything. And that's what people don't get excited about. Wow, that excites the NBA. He can switch. He's done it for 3 years. He can guard bigger guys. He can front the post, and then still switch out on smaller point guards.
And as far as Bridges goes, 21 years old. I mean, listen, we've seen the last couple of years now how the benefit of having someone a little bit more physically mature has helped the 76ers. Ben Simmons, if he had played 16, 17, probably would have come in and made a great run at Rookie of the Year. Could have been Rookie of the Year, who knows. But like Ben Simmons was able to physically impose himself this year a little bit more with some physical training. Bridges, you get him into an NBA pro weight room, the likes of which we have over here. I think maybe has a threshold to add a couple more pounds on there.
Wow, no, I think it's crazy. One of the reasons I think people probably think he's not even higher on the draft because he's older. That's what's funny. I think for this organization, that's an advantage. You're getting a mature basketball player in terms of understanding what it takes to win, how to fit, and then the jump in the weight room, strength, conditioning. He's just going to be a monster when he's 25 years old.
That's the craziest part, that there are guys on the roster who are already monster-ish, and they're not even at that 25-year-old point. We are in the Clippers section of the first round of the draft, at pick number 12. The other Bridges, Miles Bridges.
And a lot of talk because Clippers have the next pick too, Brian. You would think they don't take both of them, or do they? Now that they take that one, they take him. That may be traded. Or the next one is Michael Porter Jr. You have two, and you wait for trade options if they haven't done it already.
Michael Porter Jr. continues to slide.
I don't.
At this point, if you were making picks, he probably would have been gone. Right?
No. He's a top. If there's nothing to the medical, he's a top 5 at worst. So there's something with the medical.
There would have to be, you would think, something that's catching teams' attention. 76ers with the 10th overall pick, taking Mikal Bridges, a guy who has won at every level. This is a look at Miles Bridges, who we're seeing right now, a guy that the Sixers had in for their workouts. And he's a player that has a lot of good skills.
No, he's good.
He's got an explosiveness to him that you can't deny.
You know what's interesting? He probably would have went higher if he came out last year. He was probably a top 7 pick. Didn't hurt him too much. But I tell you who it helped? The team that just took him. That's who it helps.
Right.
Because he's coming in older, another year of Coach Izzo, another year of discipline, another year of maturity at that age. And you know what? It helps him too. Because here's a kid that's going to understand what it takes, project, get better, for him, work on the rookie contract and benefit from the year at Michigan State. He's a really good player. And I mean this draft, next year, I just kind of glanced at the top players in high school right now, nowhere near this level.
Coming up in just a matter of moments from NBC Sports Philadelphia, we're going to have 76ers beat reporter Jess Camerado coming on. We'll get her reaction on the number 10 pick, which was Mikal Bridges. Yes, you've probably heard ad nauseum by now. His mom works for the team. Well, Billy Lang, who we had on here in the first hour, he was the primary recruit for Mikal Bridges, part of the last recruiting class at Villanova before he took the job with the 76ers. And he took the job with the Sixers, Billy did, back in 13-14, Brett Brown's first season, which puts in perspective, so that's 5 years ago, just how far back some of these recruiting efforts go. That's how long ago you got to get on the scene with some of these guys.
No question. There's a couple of these guys I recruited at Boston College.
Right.
And that was 4 years ago. That's what you do. And in a lot of ways, you get to know them when they're really young. Billy's a really good, he wouldn't have said that, but he's someone that could speak about the kid and his growth from 9th grade on.
Right.
Which tells you a lot about him.
When did, for you, Mikal's first start to, let's not talk about a top 10 pick, come on the radar as a guy who had pro potential?
We played him, obviously, the last 2 years. I thought this year there was a much different attitude about his approach. It's a little nastier. There was usually a niceness in a good way, but he had some killer to him this year that I didn't sense in the past with him. I think he's understood what was at stake, and what a magical year. I mean, it's hard to believe we're talking about Villanova, that they won another national championship.
I mean, the fact that it was their third Final Four since 2009 is crazy.
So and we played some high-level teams this year, and I was 4 years in the ACC. He jumped out at you with his length and just his ability. Like, it's hard to stop him because he's just really long and gifted. And then there's a skill level there. So that kind of jumps out. He's not the physical presence that I think he'll eventually be, but that length and just the size and his skill jumps out at you.
We've been reacting here on the set for the last 20 minutes in the news that Mikal Bridges is now a 76er. Let's go over to the social desk and Marissa Pilla, who's been scouring the social sphere for reaction.
Well, someone who is no stranger to this area, Mikal Bridges, a Media PA native, and of course a member of that national championship team for the Villanova Wildcats. He was such an integral member of their three-point success. He shot 41% from the three over the last 2 seasons with Nova. A lot of positive impact, a lot of positive good things happening from him on the Nova team. But let's take a look at what the fans are saying right now on Twitter about the Sixers pick on Mikal Bridges. First up, we have Robert Covington and Rashawn Holmes, teammates welcoming their new teammate right now to the squad, saying let's get it. And also some brotherly love happening right now on Twitter with Eagles' Lane Johnson tweeting out another champion coming down the road to Philly, and the Eagles themselves throwing this little fact out there. This is the first time a Philadelphia team has drafted a Villanova player since Brian Westbrook was drafted by the Eagles back in 2002. And an even more love coming after this pick. ESPN's Kevin Gandhi commenting on how he interviewed Bridges just last month, calling him the real deal. Eagles' Jalen Mills welcoming Bridges back home, and fellow Nova alum Brian Westbrook, of course, again sending his congratulations as well to Mikal Bridges. Overall, a positive feeling on social media with that selection. Let's check in right now with what Bridges had to say before the draft.
Just saying I do good. I can shoot the ball really well. Surprised a couple of teams, handling the ball and playmaking. And I mean, just a lot of good feedback. Just saying how they like me, especially as a person, more than anything, and how how I rep myself.
Now that it's been like a week since you were with the Sixers in Philadelphia, you've had some time to kind of soak up that workout. What stood out to you about that when you were with that team and how you were doing in your style?
I mean, people that run the workouts, a couple Nova guys, so felt like I was at home with them. They're funny. Coach Lang and Connor, I mean, I've worked out with Connor when I was my first year coming to college for like a half of a summer until he got the job with the Sixers. And Coach Lang recruited me to go to Nova, and then once I got there, he left. So both of them left. But no, it was good. They pushed me, and it was a nice, long workout. But it was good, for sure.
What would it be like for you to play for him? You said Coach Lang and Connor, your mom is a part of the organization. I mean, what would that be like for you?
I mean, it'd be really cool, just, being around Sixers. My mom obviously works there and got Nova guys. But, I mean, just other than that, just the process, with them, just how they got better and, how they play, fits how I play. Playing behind Ben and Joel, just feel like I could just, be a nice piece for them. Just especially more space for Ben and Joel, moving out the ball for Ben, he can pass the ball really well. So things like that. But, I mean, just how they play and, they're trying to win a championship. I know, Brett Brown's all about winning. And, that's what I'm about too. That's all I really care about is just getting better and winning. And, I mean, that's, that's the main thing that I like about them, that they want to win.
Mikal Bridges, the newest 76er, his media availability up in New York City, the pre-draft day press conferences. Great to be joined now by someone who was there yesterday from NBC Sports Philadelphia, Jess Camerato. What do you think?
It's funny because with the 10th pick, you can have so many options, right? Like, where is this going to land? But for the Sixers, this felt like such an obvious pick for them. Obviously, they've been familiar with him since high school, since college, and he's just such a good fit for the team, the way that he plays, the team-first style of basketball, as well as what he does on the court with that 3-and-D versatility.
Worked out here for a solo session last Tuesday, but as you said, he's someone who the Sixers, if there were anyone that the team would have great intelligence on, it would be him. But he also comes from a winning program, too, and that's a part of his package as well.
That is something that he emphasized right here during his workout, and then when I was in New York yesterday getting a chance to talk to him, he brought up winning again. So I said, okay, you have now brought up winning every single time that we have talked to you. What is it about winning that matters to you? And he says having won at Villanova has taught him about the importance of sacrifice, about not being necessarily the guy, but being part of a team, and having been through the trenches with his teammates before, he understands what it takes to win a championship, and that's certainly a goal of his in the NBA.
That's, I think a lot of guys may say that. He's done that. Like, he's sacrificed that. Willing to take a redshirt year, win 2 championships. But then even this year, he was 3rd in the team in usage rating. So here's a kid that's a 10th pick of the draft. He's the third option on that team at the end of the shot clock. Didn't bother him. He wanted to win. And I saw throughout the summers and how hard those kids work and what he put in to winning. It's great.
And now coming to the Sixers, where you're not necessarily going to be the first option. Because in talking to a lot of the draft prospects, and including Bridges, talking about playing alongside Ben Simmons, playing along Joel Embiid, so they understand when they come here that it may be more of a complementary role than being that star player, because they do have that foundation, and he, as you just mentioned, has been part of a kind of system like that before.
76ers obviously picking Mikal Bridges. We are expecting soon to hear from the head coach and the acting head of basketball operations, Brett Brown. This is now a situation where you look at, we were talking about this, just the length and height across this roster. There's so much versatility that the 76ers have. I can't wait to hear from Brett what the dynamics were inside that room. I'm not sure about you, but especially with him now in this temporary role in charge of basketball operations, how things were going down there. Because we were talking like, maybe they were getting trade calls for Michael Porter Jr. if teams wanted to move up. I mean, it was really fascinating the way it all played out.
They have so many options with the 10th pick. I mean, the 10th pick is coveted. And you have situations where maybe you could have packaged something, but Bridges it's a good fit. And I've always said this pick is kind of like been a bonus pick for the Sixers. And this truly is a bonus, getting a guy that just clicks with the system. It's not like you have to try to squeeze him in to maybe make him work. It just seems seamless with him.
Yeah, I said that. I think if they got another kid who had to have the ball, had to isolate, made plays off the dribble really well, but he didn't shoot it. Well, that doesn't fit here. He fits, and that it fits in every way. But when you're talking about on the court, that fits. And he's a talented kid who's, to me, is not even close to where he'll be in 3 or 4 years.
And of course, a great person to tell him all about the team is his mom. I mean, like that's one of the stories where like it's just scripted perfectly with his mother having currently worked for the organization. It's just like a big homecoming for the hometown guy.
Do you get more off-ticket prices if your son plays for the team? It's like tuition reimbursement.
Do you get the employee discount or something?
Yeah.
On top of whatever
It's got to be a
else you
win-win there, right?
We also kind of, in the midst of all this, we're at the 14th pick just about in the draft. The 76ers holding their possession, another pick in the first round at number 26, and another opportunity to deepen the talent pool.
So many options. So when the Sixers held pre-draft workouts, there were a lot of guys that came through that were late first round, second round, or projected undrafted type players. So some guys that stood out to me were Jacob Evans, watching him play, Bruce Brown, also some backcourt players there. Grayson Allen, of course, is a name that's been mentioned since it seems like he was in high school. So we'll have to see what they do there, as well as perhaps another draft and stash situation like they did last year when the team selected Pisheshniks, who's still overseas.
And I'm thinking, too, obviously the Sixers have a haul in the second round that they can work to their advantage. There was another guy they brought in for 2 workouts, Zhaire Smith, and you wonder, where does he go, and whether there could be
I
some
think it's a talented draft, and there's pieces there. I love Bruce Brown for athleticism and toughness. Are you still looking at another guard if you can't sign Riddick? You know, does Grayson Allen fit that mold, the young version of him? Are you able to sign him if you want to go get a free agent? I think it's a pick that, to me, is another guard that can be someone who can shoot the ball.
Yeah, I agree, because there is so much uncertainty with the free agent market. Who's going to come back to the team? Who are they going to get out and sign? So if you take care of that in the draft, the 26th pick is still a very talented player. We've seen so many guys come late in the first round that like to remind people, like a Draymond Green, of remember where I was drafted? So there's always players come in, they could have a chip on their shoulder trying to prove something. And that's not necessarily a bad thing when you come into the league with a little extra motivation there.
We were talking earlier, it's almost like you forget the suspense and anticipation that comes along with having a pick that's not number 1 in the draft after the last couple of years. It's just fun. It was different.
Yeah, it's very different. Instead of like, all right, well, it's definitely going to be Mikal, or it's definitely going to be Ben. It's kind of funny waiting to go number 10 or number 26 rather, but that's what happens when you become a playoff contending team. That's what you hope for, to not have the number 1 pick all the time.
And listen, 10's really high for a team that just won 52 games.
Exactly.
I would say that. Like, that's a heck of an advantage.
High-class problem indeed. Jess Camerato got all things covered for NBC Sports Philadelphia. Thanks so much for stopping by. We'll be talking, I'm sure, soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You got it. So we are standing by Brett Brown. The expectation is that he'll probably speak shortly. These things are fluid and change. In the meantime, let's hear a little bit more from our man, Desron Dorsett, and some things related to what the 76ers did with Nike this past year.
Your Philadelphia 76ers. I've been here about 4 seasons now, and I've actually seen my role evolve in a positive light. So I've done a little traditional sponsorship, a lot of moving the business forward, business development, and most recently have overseen our merchandise strategy and how we bring things to life. Nike this year has taken over as the on-court apparel partner of the NBA. And one of the new programs that they brought to life that we are very excited about is the City Edition. The City Edition is a 1-year jersey. It's called the City Edition because it's all about your city, your team, and nothing else. For us, we looked at that, and we have some very creative minds here at the 76ers. And we wanted to tell a story about Philadelphia that's tied to the history. And we couldn't start our first year of our city jersey without really going back to the first year of the United States of America. So we looked at our city jersey, we looked at the Declaration of Independence, and it was written on a parchment paper. So we looked at that color and realized it was awesome. And we made our jersey based on the parchment color of the Declaration of Independence paper. And I think, bar none, it was the best City Edition jersey in the NBA. That allowed us to take that silhouette and create a ton of awesome merchandise. Most notably, our parchment hood that features a 7-6 that goes back to our Spirit of 76 celebration. This is the 2018 draft cap, which is made by New Era. New Era, another one of our partners, they take the headwear game to a whole new level. Take a look, you'll see the team's primary logo. You'll see a nice, unique bell that sits right on the top. And this is actually a removable pin. And it goes back to us celebrating the history of Philadelphia and putting a Liberty Bell on here. Each team also has the opportunity to have patches on the side of their draft cap. So you'll see this is one of our more popular secondary logos, the ball and bend. This is when the franchise was founded. This is a shortened version of Philadelphia. And this is a state flag. We appreciate the fact that New Era allows the teams to collaborate on making the draft cap unique. It's a whole new look at bringing our newest player into the franchise. But I will give a little secret that next year's draft cap will be even more iconic. So it's funny that a lot of folks think that items are made a couple weeks beforehand. I think this draft cap was designed over a year ago, and we're finalizing what our draft cap for 2019 is going to look like. So enjoy this, and just look forward to 2019 as we'll have a whole new look and feel.
I am no hand model, and for good reason. However, these are pretty sweet promotional items that the 76ers gave away to members of the media, highlighting the accomplishments of one Ben Simmons this past year and his bid for Rookie of the Year. By the way, NBA Awards show is next week in Los Angeles. These are pretty cool, eh? There, Coach Donahue, you got.
I almost had one in my pocket. I'm glad I was going to steal it unless you. They are really sharp. That's awesome.
This is these were created playing cards by the 76ers to hand out to media members. It includes a piece of game-worn jersey by the, probably have a biased opinion, Rookie of the Year this season.
Yeah. Way to go out on a limb.
I don't have too many takes, and when I do, they are of the safe variety. He had an awesome year, and he's a big reason why. Like, you, at the very minimum, I mean, yeah, if you have a guy who's in the running for Rookie of the Year, great. But I would think with a high drafted rookie or any new player you bring in, especially a young one, you want to find out, you would hope after 1 year you have a sense of what that player is going to be. And I think that without question the 76ers know what Ben Simmons can be, and that just makes the development and building of your team that much more efficient. You can be more confident with it.
The growth after your rookie year in this league, he is going to be a monster. All the things, and we pick at him. Meanwhile, he led us to 52 wins, and he's not even close to where he'll be. It's just not. And a lot of it comes with just playing, but he's got a lot of ways to get better. And what he does, the best thing I like about him, he knows how to play the game of basketball. And that helps everybody on the court. No matter who, everybody wants to play with him. He's just a great player to help others get better.
Brett Brown was pretty convinced from, I'd say pretty much the outset, that Ben Simmons was going to be the primary ball handler, call him a point guard. You can just call him a point man. Did you see that initially? What did you think of that decision?
I'll be honest, I probably was like a little skeptical, not knowing him, Ben, as well as Brett obviously did. It was hard to think that a guy that big is going to bring the ball up and get you in the offense. I think what Brett did was kind of create the offense around someone like Ben, where it's more move the ball early, get it moving, not a lot of ball screens at this point, because that's not what Ben does well. But wow, what a dynamic offense. Obviously, continue to grow as we get better players, but I thought using him at point guard was genius.
As we tie it back into what's been happening tonight, 76ers taking Mikal Bridges at number 10 overall. I think that if you go back and you look over the last 5 seasons now that Brett Brown has been with the 76ers, the visions that he has laid out essentially have really all come to fruition. He came in and being kind of like the weird nerd I am. I went back after the Sixers clinched their playoff berth and I watched his very first press conference, August of 2013, just to hear what he was talking about then and where things are now. And sure enough, his first press conference talking about getting players to an elite level of fitness, pace, space, defense, and what are the Sixers now? They're a top 5 team in pace, top 3 team in defense, the way they've developed their players. So with Brett Brown at the head of basketball operations right now, I'm sure we're going to find out more with the press conference, or at least he'll be asked how the decision-making went down. But I think all the body of evidence shows that Brett Brown has been on top of what he's been talking about so far.
You know what, as a coach, it's been an amazing transformation that I've watched. Really impressed how he handled all that losing. I don't think anybody understands how difficult that was as a coach, to continue to be positive, move on with what your vision is. Meanwhile, you're losing game after game. He never let that bother his approach and make sure that he kept the core values and the culture that he wanted going forward. And then when they got better players, it was going to be right there. He has a lot to do with where this organization is. That was the right guy for this situation.
And building on what you just said, in this transition period with Brett Brown acting as the top man on basketball operations, a lot of the stuff that he talked about after that decision was made was that he is a guy to lead this team right now. He may not get bogged down in the day-to-day decision-making. I'm not sure if Brett's in his office over there making hard, fast calculations on cap numbers, but he's a guy who can lead. We've seen that. As a coach, what do you admire and respect about just, I guess maybe the better question is, why has his leadership been effective?
Well, I think just on a personal basis, his ability to handle everyone around Philadelphia that's involved with basketball, he makes us feel a part of this.
Because you guys come into some of these workouts, he opens the doors, right?
He allows, in the meetings, like he's open to every aspect of us being a part of the Sixers, which is an incredible tool for us to get better as coaches and people. But more importantly, it just shows you that there's no ego here. This is all about us moving forward and being a servant leader that he is for his players. That's how he leads. And you can see how they play, how the players act off the court, the words they use with each other. As I said, I couldn't tell you how impressive it was when they weren't winning, how he handled it.
It is a great story, but a great player whom the 76ers feel they have. We're going to check in. We heard from 76ers Nation and their reaction to the pick of Mikal Bridges. Now let's go to Marissa Pilla with reaction from Nova Nation.
Thanks, Brian. We're still keeping an eye out for your reactions on the Sixers selecting Mikal Bridges with the number 10 overall draft pick. Earlier, we shared with you some reactions from the Philly sports community, but let's take a look real quick at the reactions of that draft pick from Bridges' Villanova family. We have 2016 national champion Ryan Arcidiacono tweeting out his excitement for Bridges and his family, along with his former teammate and now current Los Angeles Laker Josh Hart expressing how proud he is of the new 76er. And his alma mater, Villanova, sharing this great picture of Mikal and his mom celebrating the moment he was announced as the member of the 76ers. His former head coach Zhaire taking to Twitter as well, sharing his thoughts, saying, quote, "Happy are those who dream and are willing to pay the price." In another statement on Twitter, Jay Wright also said that Bridges is a great leader and he is confident he will enjoy a very successful professional career. And remember, we want to hear from you at home too, so make sure you join our conversation online. You can tweet right to the Sixers, or if you're watching a live stream, just send a comment down below. We'll be bringing in your comments throughout today's show as well. Brian, back to you.
1, 2, 3.
I didn't do draft day, so I was at home on the couch.
With the third pick in the 2014 NBA Draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Joel Embiid from Yaoundé, Cameroon, and the University of Kansas.
Our live streaming coverage from 76ers headquarters at the training complex here in Camden continues. Steve Donahue's been hanging out all night, the head coach at Penn. The man over there, Tom McGinnis, wrapping up year number 23 on the mic for 76ers radio broadcasts. I think you got to be pretty pumped up about this pick.
I really, like, this is, I had tears in my eyes just because of Tania and the Sixers. I'll probably do it right now. But there was a great piece in ESPNW about Tania, her story, where we learned a lot about her career path, you know, when she had Mikal Bridges. And it's just, it's special. Like, we call ourselves a family here with our organization, and she has family who's going to be on the team. I mean, how wild is that?
That's awesome.
It's so neat. And then the basketball player, you know, like, we've seen a lot of Villanova the last few years. As I was saying to Coach, that deal with Fox where, you know, you get to watch Villanova play so many times during the course of a given season, not to mention as a national power and a two-time NCAA champion. But I loved his game from the jump. You know, like as Jay Billis said during the ESPN coverage, he's a blender. In other words, he's not going to be able to maybe create his own shot. But guess what? That's how the Sixers play, with all of that movement around the perimeter and all of the passes. That's perfect. And, you know, the phrase 3-and-D player, I think he fits that really well. And he was a great defender. To me, the games that stood out for him were the Gonzaga game at Madison Square Garden. To me, I thought that's when he really projected right into the top 10, and that's exactly what it turned out. And I asked him that. I rarely ask a question when these guys come through, or for that matter, in any other instance, unless I get the guys one-on-one, but that's when I wanted to speak to him about it. He knew it. But as players, they talk about not just going up the draft board, although that certainly had to be top of mind, but confidence. To know, in that instance, he was the best player on the floor. And then I had a chance to go to, at Madison Square Garden, the Big East Championship game. As you know, we took a train up there, and already we were playing at 6 o'clock. And he just, again, he took over that game against Providence. So just real quickly, I was in Tania's office years ago. We were still at the Navy Yard, and I was contemplating this one paperwork, and she excused herself to take a call. And I got out of the room and kind of came back in, and she said, "Oh, that was my son. He never calls me." And she, you know, maybe thought initially it was something was going on. And I said, "Oh, that's great." I go, "Where does he go to school?" And she said, "Villanova." And she said, I said, "Really?" And she said, "He's on the basketball team." I said, "Really?" And then at that point he was a freshman. And I said, "Does he play?" Knowing that Jay doesn't play a lot of freshmen. And she goes, "Yeah, he does. He plays about 20 minutes a game." Well, that's half the game. I'm like, "Really?" And that's when he jumped on the radar for me.
Funny.
And he became obviously more and more part of the mix. But I think it's a great pick. It sounds like Brett Brown, and he has a relationship with Coach Wright, knew who he wanted, and didn't waver.
we were saying, this is a phenomenal story. I mean, somehow Tania, she is Mikal's mom, but she's also the mom, literally, like, takes care of 250 people here, a bunch of people up in Newark, New Jersey with the New Jersey Devils, somehow gets it all done. So it's a great story, but they wouldn't have taken him if they didn't believe he was going to be a difference maker.
Of course not, of course not. And guess what? She'd have been just as proud as if he went to the Knicks.
Right.
You know, but no, I think, and Brett Brown said things have changed. Like now we pick players that are going to fit for the Sixers. They don't have to take the best available player or athlete or like that. Now he's going to be able to fit in. And again, it's not just right now, although it will be, but I think he projects to be a really good player going forward, a lot of upside. He's a great athlete. He's going to be able to defend multiple positions. He seems to be a great young man. I think it's a tremendous pick. I wanted that all along, and boy, it seems like it worked out.
I'll throw it to you 1 second, quickly to interrupt. Zhaire Smith just taken off the board by the Phoenix Suns after getting some words of a report out there involving the Sixers and a potential trade with the Phoenix Suns that would maybe potentially send the Suns pick Zhaire Smith to the 76ers for Mikal Bridges. So, wow, that would be something. Again, we don't know if that's official. We can't really speculate or comment on that aside from what's being reported. Other than that, we know the Sixers, who brought Zhaire Smith in here twice for a workout, seem to like him, and he seemed to be high on their radar.
He had yellow sneakers on, right? He was. I didn't know a lot about him, Zhaire Smith. And then, as you know, we watched more of the workout, but a lot of that was shooting. And then the part where they let the media in, and we came down here on the floor, right over there over my left shoulder. He made like an incredible block and an incredible dunk. And then, Brian, you interviewed him, Smith, and he was, I thought he was a really solid young guy, real mature for his age.
Zhaire Smith is a really incredible story. Was not much of a player when he went into college, probably more of a four-man who didn't really shoot the ball, and he's just taken off in terms of what people projected him. One, what Tom touched on, his personality. He's an incredible, imposing a teammate, worker. He's probably the best athlete in this draft, defends multiple positions, and it looks like Sixers got a first-round pick in 2021 as well to go along with that.
All right, so we'll pause for just a moment. We do have, just kind of to set the scene of perhaps what could be involved with the 76ers line of thinking. This is a clip from Brett Brown following the very first pre-draft workout the Sixers had back on June the 11th, talking about the mindset the Sixers would take going into this draft and that they would not hold back in terms of their conviction when it came to making any types of decisions. So here it is.
Do you feel comfortable working trades and doing that kind of stuff, or do you feel like you're going to be more conservative going into it?
No, I think anything's on the table. You know, I think anything is on the table. I feel like we will be bold. You know, we will be smart. Nobody's going into this with any other attitude that we will do our homework and we will be aggressive. And I feel like the firepower, again, so that I'm clear, the firepower that I have around me, and you know, I'm in the role that you guys know I am in, and we have, you know, Mark Eversley, you know, leading the scouts. We've got ownership that studies this. I think Alex Rucker and Ned Cohen are great, and so like it's stuff you spitball and go through, but nobody's going into this conservative. You know, there will be an attitude and a boldness that if we feel we have to do something and it's smart, then that's what we'll do.
Rumblings, rumors that are out there that the 76ers involved in a trade with the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns picked up Zhaire Smith, who is here for 2 workouts at the 16th spot. The 76ers picked Mikal Bridges at 10. It is reported that both those players could be involved in the deal. So we heard Brett Brown talking about, he said it from day one after the first workout, the Sixers were going to be bold in their conviction, they were going to be aggressive, and there might be a pickup of a future first-round draft pick for the Sixers. We'll get all the news when it becomes official, but if this were to be true and pan out, it would be in line with the thinking the Sixers had.
Well, here's what what we don't know, there's a lot of things that go into picking players. A lot of money, a lot of resources. They obviously targeted Smith. I mean, if that's true, like that's not just, oh wow, that was, they can't tell anybody.
Right.
But if that's it, they knew who they wanted.
The tears have dried up. And his coach said, this is a business.
Yeah.
You know, and if there's other considerations involved in a swap like this, and again, going back to when you interviewed him in the hallway out front here at the training complex, and again, not knowing a lot about a Red Raiders basketball, having watched him, I know he really excelled in his freshman season, an incredible athlete, but I was just looking at him, and I'm like, wow, this guy is going to be a player. Just looking at his physique, looking at his comportment, how he handled himself, I'm thinking this guy is going to be a player in the NBA, and you know, we're this close to him. Well, turns out he might be right here in this building again.
I think we have a one-on-one interview at some point that we'll get to. We'll play back that interview with Zhaire Smith. He's a man who's very concise and brief in his remarks, businesslike, and it's so funny now, if this report does prove to be true. Elton Brand was talking earlier this week about the debate that this organization internally was kicking around, well, potential versus fit. Do you go for someone who can help you right now, who's a little bit older? Do you go for someone who's got potential? And at first, Mikal Bridges, this isn't to imply that Mikal won't have room to grow, but at this stage in Mikal's college career, you kind of know what he would project to be. And that might have fallen under the fit category. Now with Zhaire Smith, it could be the complete opposite, and you're looking at potential mostly on what he could pan out to be.
You're right.
I think there's a lot of analytics behind this pick as well. A 19-year-older doing this compared to what a 21-year-older, and what those numbers translate analytically may have something to do with it. I know this organization values that. He is younger. He's a 6'4", strong, crazy athlete. What I've been surprised at is in the workouts, hearing that he does shoot the ball. And that was obviously the rap on him going into college. He's not someone that really looked to do that.
From Dallas, right, Brian? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, correct. Just outside Dallas, Garland, Texas. And the other thing is, too, that in that workout, the second workout that Zhaire Smith had on Tuesday, the Sixers formatted that workout a little bit differently. In that group on Tuesday, the emphasis was on him showing all aspects of his game, whether it was his ball handling or his shot making. And it was a story that, to a certain degree, flew under the radar a little bit because everyone was looking at the return of Kevin Knox, a projected top 10 pick. And there was Zhaire Smith, got to spend some more time with Brett Brown, and sounds like he's a guy that the Sixers have had in their sights for quite some time.
No, it sounds like they're going to add a very talented athletic player who's going to help overall.
Because you know what, guys, it's, I think one of the pundit questions going into this year's draft, because it's so fresh, who's going to be the next Donovan Mitchell? Who's the next Donovan Mitchell in this year's draft?
Wow, DiVincenzo just went to Milwaukee.
How about that?
Went way higher than people thought. So that's unbelievable. Like the fact that he was like prior to Chicago, maybe not even a first-round pick, and then he goes there and works out 2 days in a row, and here he is in the top 2017, if I'm not mistaken, to the Bucks.
Yeah, I don't think if they don't advance to the championship game, Dante's back in school. Like, that's how life and timing has a lot to do with this. He took advantage of that window and really showed what an athlete.
We were talking about, Tom, what the NBA did differently this year. If you didn't see it, right before the draft started, players were brought off the dais onto the seating area with the tables by someone close to them in their lives. Aaron Holiday from UCLA had Justin and Drew Holiday with him. Mikal went down with his parents. And we were just saying, Steve and I were, what do you think Dante DiVincenzo this time last year was expecting he'd be doing on this night this year? Probably not walking off the stage, someone invited to be a green room guy.
And now walking back on the stage, most importantly. So, no, it's a great story. A lot of bounce, shot maker, very good athlete. It'll be interesting to see. And I look at this as I write down all these notes watching this. We're going to see a lot of this guy.
Right.
You know, when you see a guy go to an Eastern Conference team, it ought to be interesting. I think he's going to be a fine young player for them.
Steve, give us the breakdown of Dante
Yeah, I've recruited Dante at Boston College early on. I'll give you an idea. He was on a local AAU team called Team Final, their B team. This is going into his senior year. That's how little recognition he had at that point. Had an incredible summer.
Is that Lonnie Walker's team too?
Or
yeah. Same program, maybe not the same year.
Different year, same program. But Dante, the rap was he could never shoot. He could always tip dunk, incredible athletically in transition, a decent ball handler, but more just like an athletic, strong finisher. What he's evolved into is a credit to what Villanova does in their player development and his work ethic.
He's Delaware's Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan didn't make the first team either his freshman year,
there
right?
You go. And he's got range. The best thing Dante does, he thinks he's the best player on the floor whenever he's out there.
Coach, you mentioned the AAU, and obviously that's as a college coach. But these players, you know, being in college only 1 year, as Eitan was picked, he was the 9th freshman player selected first. Do these basketball people in the NBA, they have to watch the AAU game, don't they? Right?
Well, now it's synergy. Like they have access to the games all the time. They can go back and watch Dante play 3 years ago in an AAU game on 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning in July.
Okay.
So there's a lot out there. It's still, it is funny, the biggest stage still matters, and his game in the national championship game and his ability to play with that kind of confidence and poise was off the charts. And I think that resonated. He goes to the combine. He's literally probably the best athlete at the combine. And here you go.
All right, Dante DiVincenzo, as we said, an invitation to the green room. That meant he had the ultimate privilege speaking to the media for about 20 minutes, a half hour yesterday in New York City. Here's the media availability with Dante DiVincenzo.
I mean, they're going up. They're going up every year, and this year was an amazing year. I remember we would go to some games as a team, and they have a great core, and they have a great young team, so that I think they'll be really good for a long time. I don't know him personally, but everything I've heard about him is like he's an amazing coach. He's on the guys, but he's like fun-loving, high energy, and just brings that energy every day at practice.
Most stylish teammate, ooh.
Timothy.
I got a tie between Justin and Timothy.
I think Timmy.
Ben. There's a couple, I would say, maybe Ben, Justin, JJ. Regular style, but really cool.
I said Dario because he was like sometimes different. Dario Sars, he had it going on, man, with his outfits.
Jared Bayless.
Definitely Jared Bayless.
Wears really well-tailored suits, and he's a beautiful man, so I'll go with Jared.
Ben or Justin? One of those two.
Justin Anderson.
Most stylish teammate, myself.
It's kind of like a dream, honestly. You know, you wake up and you realize you're about to work out with the Sixers. And you come on the court and it's go time.
The Sixers don't need to try to find a savior at number 10. They need to find another solid rotation player. Probably want some shooting, some ball handling.
Coach, this has been a busy week. You've had like 20 guys come through here. What's it been like?
I mean, it's exciting. We have so many draft picks, and you're seeing people from sort of a wide swath, a wide range that we're studying. And I think that, you know, because we have so much greater clarity than we've ever had on the existing team. You know, we have Ben and we have Joel as an example, and trying to, you know, walk that line of, is it a fit? Is it for the future? How do they complement our present group?
Miles Bridges, he's a combo forward. He can play the 3, the 4. He's so athletic. He'd be great running with Ben Simmons in transition. And I also think he's a little bit underrated as a shooter and a passer. One of the best athletes in this draft.
They're going to get a good player. Maybe not a superstar caliber player. I think maybe top 7 or so. You got to fall in that range. Lonnie Walker, they could use a 2 guard.
Mikal Bridges, probably a home run for them, just a 3-and-D guy who knows his role, unselfish, can come in and play for them right away.
So in terms of, you know, the way we play, pace, space, defend, I think he checks a lot of those boxes.
It's no mystery on how I feel like I want to coach our team and grow our program, either offensively or defensively. You know, you design a workout to reflect the future of the game, how we play now, what do we have in Joel, Say, and Ben as examples, and craft the workout to reflect some of those qualities and skill packages and assess where they're at, where we think they could be with work and with sort of maturity.
It's definitely very intense. We're all fighting for that same spot, so it definitely creates a no friends in the court type of thing.
You gotta be mentally tough. You're gonna get tired, and I mean, and they know that. It's a matter of what you do when you're tired. You're gonna give up, or you're going, you know, keep trying to make shots and keep going hard.
100 threes is probably, you know, the main thing that we wanted to put him through today to see how he shoots the ball. That's actually something we do with all of our prospects is we have them go through 100 shots. You know, gives us a platform to, you know, evaluate all of these kids.
This one we did shoot a lot more shots than the ones I've been, but that's kind of how Coach Brown coaches.
Tell me about your impressions of Brett Brown. Was this your first chance to interact with him today, and what type of impression did he leave upon you?
He left a great impression. He brought a lot of energy. He talked to us after. Not a lot of coaches do that.
You get into a little bit about the history of the program. You get into the realities of the city of Philadelphia. You get into how do we play, how do I coach basketball, and then listen to them a little bit. And I really want them understanding what we represent before they leave our gym.
We know what our targets will be in free agency and what we're looking for in the NBA draft.
If we pick at 10, I think we're going to get a pretty good player.
If we feel we have to do something and it's smart, then that's what we'll do. I think anything's on the table.
For the Sixers to have another lottery pick, they have a chance to get a good player there.
The Philadelphia 76ers select.
Really exciting piece of content and a new content series that we will have for you throughout the off-season and summer. Summer 76 All Access. Shout out to Alex Nolan and our staff for a job very well done putting that together. Episode number 1 just coming out. The 76ers, whomever it is who they ultimately went up with tonight, you would think has a prominent role on that series throughout the summer. All right, Lonnie Walker IV out of Reading Senior, pride of Berks County, going to the San Antonio Spurs with the number 18 pick after Dante DiVincenzo goes to the Milwaukee Bucks at 17. And the pick before that at 16, Zhaire Smith. According to reports, it seems like the 76ers and the Suns involved in a trade that would bring Zhaire Smith here to the Sixers. And guys, we're sitting on pick number 19, the second pick of the first round for the Atlanta Hawks. 76ers, another team with 2 picks in the first round, and right now they are slated to go at number 26, so we can start to advance and look ahead to who might be there for the Sixers at 26.
You know, I just think they need a shooter, a shooter in the sense that this is what this guy does, catch and shoot. I think if indeed the trade went through, Smith is someone that brings some versatility, in particular on the defensive end, a lot of things. But I think we need a shooter, and Grayson Allen jumps out at you. He could fall into that range. I don't think Kevin Huerter sounds like he's going to go next to Atlanta. But that's what I would think, a shooter.
Yeah, I would think so too. There's certain needs you knew coming in, and that would be one. And Allen certainly fills the bill in that regard, surprising people with his athleticism, his measurables in Chicago, right, with that vertical leap. And so we'll see. It's, what, 5 or 6 picks away. but the Sixers with a great opportunity at that spot.
It's funny, I think Grayson Allen's quote, or one quote that he gave, someone was bringing up the comparison to J.J. Redick. He was like, yeah, but I jump a lot higher, like deadpan, didn't miss a beat. And I'll be honest, obviously there's been a lot of focus on Grayson Allen over the course of his 4 years at Duke. But when I watched the media availability of his at the Combine, I came away thinking, likable kid, more mature, polished kid, and clearly there's ability there.
Yeah, that's another kid we recruited early on at Boston College, down in, I think, Providence Day, Jacksonville, Florida. Really nice kid. He's right about that. He's way longer than JJ. He's much more athletic. And you think about it, he was the MVP basically of the national championship game as a freshman. And the next 3 years, Duke brings in 3 lottery picks each of the next 3 years. And he's got to blend in. And he's not going to be the best player, even though he did that. I think that's a tough role to fill. He made over 100 threes this year at a 36, 37%. He's a very good athlete. I think he's going to be a long career in the NBA.
For the Atlanta Hawks, their second pick is Kevin Huerter out of Maryland. And that brings to mind also when you go back to someone like a Dante DiVincenzo, where there's all this talk every year. It's like, well, how much good does the Combine serve in Chicago? And what's the point? Well, those are 2 guys in DiVincenzo and Huerter
no doubt,
who really had a great Combine. Melvin Frazier from Tulane, another guy maybe to keep an eye on as we work farther into the night here in the draft. But for some of those fringe guys, after you get past maybe the first 15 of the lottery phase of the first round, of course, if you're playing there and you show well, how can it not help you?
Yeah.
I agree. And as you say, to test the water as much as anything. Everything that goes into it, you know, like to meet with NBA people, to gather information from both sides, it's really advantageous. And I think it's good for both sides, the young player in college who may go back, or to find out if he's going to be selected in the first round.
Kevin Huerter, a solid shooter. So now I feel like at this stage of the draft, we start to get more into a player that's more tailored to fit a role within your team as currently constituted.
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways to look at it. One is let's see if we can get a need here, but also there's a chance, like there's a couple of really talented, tall, lengthy athletes that are still around. Do you take that and hope that they build on that? Kevin Huerter's I'm really surprised that he's this far advanced after seeing him in high school, from not very highly recruited till the very end to jump in. And I'm not positive that he's going to be a great NBA player. Just think he's can catch and shoot, but he's not. I thought he was inconsistent at that. But once again, there's a Combine telling you, wow, he's longer than we thought. He's more athletic than we thought. Let's forget the film and let's do that. I think that has a lot to do with that.
You know, it's amazing too. And Coach, you know this better than anybody, but there's so much talent at every level. And now we're getting into the 20th pick of a particular draft, the 2018 draft. We're going, I mean, these are really good basketball players. I mean, it's incredible. But that's what happens when you focus on the top 14, the lottery picks and whatnot. But there's going to be so many players here in these next few drafts, and in the second round, undrafted players who will make an impact in the NBA.
Well, ask both of you guys. Great to be sitting here next to people with a pair of eyes as seasoned as both of yours. Skills, indicators, cues at the college level that you have found translate, or then, by the same token, don't translate to the next level? Because, I mean, you've been here to see all the names that are projected the last 20-some years and who makes it in the NBA, and you're as deep into the college game as there is.
I'll start just because the one thing I would say is you have to be able to get your own shot. With the clock of 24 seconds and so athletic ability, you think back to players that were tremendous college players that didn't pan out, the Steve Alfords of the world. And, you know, like, as you mentioned earlier, about a 19-year-old player versus even a 22-year-old player, that the upside potential of a young player is looked at very highly by basketball personnel people. I remember when Thaddeus Young was drafted, and he went to Georgia Tech, and Al Thornton was a player at Florida State. And Thornton probably had a better college career.
Oh, yeah.
But he was like 23 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember, and Thad was maybe 19.
Yeah.
I think Billy King was the Sixers GM And I remember, like, inside my own brain, like, what's the big deal? Well, it turned out they were right. Danny Shung is still playing, and Al Thornton, drafted by the Clippers, maybe at 13, barely, maybe 3 or 4 year career. So that's, to me, that you have to have the athletic ability to be able to get off your own shot and to be able to guard at the other end. And if you don't have that, because again, we were talking earlier about a player that blends in and can play within an offensive system. But when that clock gets under 5 and you got the ball, you got to be able to create and do something on your own. And then at the other end, you got to be able to guard, or you'll get exposed and you won't be able to play. That's the bottom line.
The real answer to that is everything's different. Like, every situation is different. Those things that Tom mentioned, I agree with wholeheartedly. The hard part is, you think you figured that out when you draft somebody. Why doesn't it work? Like, when we recruit kids, like, I know day 3 sometimes, like, wow, I don't think this kid's going to make it. Or day 3, I go, wow, we got the right guy. But we did everything we could not to have that happen to us. But there's not an exact science. What is the makeup? Like how's he going to live day in and day out with basketball being a focal? Some kids go this north, some kids go south. There's really as much as you can do.
There's that old phrase, like certainly in our league, when a guy gets acquired in a trade, a coach always says, "Oh, I didn't know this," until you get him in your own gym. So that's kind of what you're saying in a general sense. Like, until you get a guy in your gym where he practices with you every day, you know the makeup, what makes him tick, you know, how he handles adversity, all those things, you really don't know until you have the athlete on a day-to-day basis and you get to work with him.
I'm sure there's a decent amount of anxiety that comes along with it, but in the college game, obviously, you act as tactician, X and O head coach, but also you're the top, essentially, personnel man.
Yeah.
Do you like that part of it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love every aspect of building a program. The personnel-driven part is something that we talk about 365. It's all about that. And it's more driven, maybe as I got older, it's more driven with the type of person we're recruiting. Like, I want to know more about them. I want to know what the counselors say, the teammates, the ex-coaches that he's going against. And all of a sudden you'll start to develop a picture of what he's really like. I'm sure this is a huge piece of what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Because whatever business we're in, like, there's talented people, but what separates the ones that succeed, you know?
Right. You do that, Coach? You'll call, like, let's say you went to whatever, XYU high school or whatever, and you'll call the opposition?
Huge part of our thing.
That's great.
I tell you what, and it's a lot of it, and that's not exact, because you got to take into what their bias is, but you start to paint the picture. That's one of the things we always reach out. Some guys say, what a competitor.
Well, and here we go. We're getting the official word now from the NBA that the trade has gone official. 76ers will be getting Zhaire Smith and a future first-round pick, and obviously sending Mikal Bridges to the Phoenix Suns in exchange. So that's official now. The new news is in. So Zhaire Smith is the pick for the 76ers. Ultimately, they trade back out of 10. Mikal Bridges, local product, going to the Phoenix Suns. So here's a guy just to reset that it seems like, and it'll be fascinating to hear from Brett Brown whenever we hear from him at the very latest. It'll be after the final pick is made tonight. But just a guy who's got some potential. Clearly the Sixers, they would not have done this if they did not have some very strong beliefs about what Zhaire Smith could become.
There's no question that this is the guy they wanted. That's apparent to make this kind of deal. I think it's funny, we talked about him a little bit prior to the draft with Billy, assistant coach Billy Lang. I said, wow, I wish he really shot. He goes, oh, he shoots it. I said, thought that was interesting, because Zhaire Smith was known as a non-shooter. Now his athleticism is, like, even in this league, you'll see some crazy stuff. The fans will, first of all, the fans are going to love him because he's such a likable type of kid and a competitor. And then you're going to see the excitement that he brings. Now, I'm not talking about winning, fit, or anything. I'm just saying fans should be excited about it.
alley-oop jams, defensive plays, blocks.
Well, and that's the thing. Defensively, he was all defensive Big 12 as a freshman. And we know that more than anything, that with this team, defense with Brett Brown comes first. And you can see that with the assembly of the roster right now, whether you're talking about guys like Joel Embiid, a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year next week, Ben Simmons, who was a rookie, got votes for All-Defensive NBA this past year, and a guy like Dario Saric, who does a little bit of everything. So why don't we take a look at some of the highlights of the aforementioned standouts from the 76ers this past season.
The length and athleticism of Simmons is off the charts.
Simmons slamming it down! Putting the exclamation point on this one.
Ben Simmons. What a jam!
Simmons between the legs, it's a Redick three, yes! Simmons stole it and slammed it for two, Ben Simmons! Hold me back, man! Goes backdoor to Simmons, one more to Embiid. That, my friends, is basketball! Simmons, great hustle, kept it alive, cruising in and slamming for two.
Here's Ben on a drive. Whoa! Simmons with a left-hand jam.
Simmons working over a Redick, and he slams for two. Can he get it to Simmons? What a play by Covington. And Simmons slams for two.
Here's Simmons blowing by everybody. Reverse jam, twists and turns, and the crowd's going crazy.
Simmons, pretty play. Ben Simmons right now with eyes in back of his head. He's got 6 assists already.
Oh, that was between the legs. Well, what a pass. Wow.
Turnover, though, by Boston. Now Simmons in transition. What a pass to Embiid, my goodness! Nice. Simmons breaking through all the way to the cup. Simmons streaking down the floor. That would look good on any Sunday.
Cannot wait. Ooh. And Simmons again. Right-handed jam.
There's Simmons throwing it in reverse. Marvelous defensive play by Joel Embiid, indeed. Embiid, his third block in the first half. He runs the floor with Simmons and finishes. What a pass to Embiid, my goodness! Posterizes Baines, and the foul! Doing it cleanly, Embiid, there to throttle. Wow, what a play by Embiid!
Oh man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
Joel Embiid got it and a foul!
In a jam by Embiid, he rams it home. He orchestrates the crowd. He's jumping around with his hands up. It's a party in South Philly.
Now Embiid in the middle. He's got a mismatch and he promptly throws it this.
Westbrook crossover drives the lane, blocked by Embiid.
Embiid drive, gets past Horford. Oh, he stuffs it on him. Trust this.
Gee, that's a great block from Saric.
Saric faking the pass, getting inside, and one more at the line. Saric, nice move on Young, you can count it, and one more at the line for Dario. Saric capturing it, Anderson taking on Gasol and having his way. Embiid working on McKinney. Charge a brilliant play. Nice recovery by Shards, the block after the behind-the-back pass.
Wasn't fooled by that behind-the-back pass. Look at it, both ends.
Looking into Shards, he's got it deep, and he scores! Up and over his head on Smart.
Covington missing on a three. Is that a mistake? Oh, there's a steal by Shards. He took it away for DeMarre Carroll.
Bellinelli took it away from Richardson, unleashing Simmons. Covington for Shards. Dario finishing with a left hand. A gorgeous fake and finish by the homie who's got 20.
Shards wide open. And he's got it! Dario Shards!
Ooh, TJ, got to see that.
Shards knocked it away, goes diving. What a play to get it to Simmons. Brilliantly done by the homie.
76ers Draft Live continuing from Sixers headquarters here in Camden, New Jersey at the 76ers training complex. Great to be rejoined by Jess Camerato from NBC Sports Philadelphia, and just like the same world we were living in when we last spoke, right?
Same questions about Zhaire this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zhaire Smith, you know, when he came in for his second workout with the Sixers, I think it was overshadowed by the fact that Kevin Knox was here for an individual workout. But they wanted to see Zhaire Smith's shooting. They also wanted to see him play with a different group of players. So kind of different purposes to, you know, get both guys in. But all along, I was impressed with Zhaire Smith. It was right there over by that basket. He drove and he got up for a dunk and kind of hung on the rim, and you're like, wow, that athleticism is impressive. So I understand that this trade is quite surprising just because of the connections to Mikal Bridges and would have fit. He would have been with the Sixers, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Zhaire Smith also has a lot to add with this team, given the fast-paced up and down system they like to play. A former track and field athlete growing up, stopped around the 10th grade, he told me, so he has a motor that will fit very well with Brett Brown's system.
Seems very businesslike as well, just in his demeanor and the way he comports himself, right?
Yeah, he's had some influences too. I also had a chance to chat with him yesterday in New York City. He said that he's been able to talk to Jeff Green a lot through this whole process. And, you know, so having veteran guys around you certainly helps. But the impression that I got from him, and Brian, you talked to him too, you're like, this seems like a good kid. And he seems hungry and eager to learn. So a good move for the Sixers when they're trying to continue to build their culture there.
That was his reputation in high school, was like just an incredible kid. Didn't score a lot. Even I don't think his numbers are great this year even, but wasn't never an elite scorer. But just someone that you could tell loved to play, an incredible athlete. As I said, I think when everything goes past and you get past this night for the fan, they're gonna love watching him play because he's exciting. And I think obviously something jumped off the page at them when they worked them out to do it a second time. And as I said, I mentioned to assistant coach Billy Lang, I said, I don't think he's a very good shooter though. We were talking about it. He goes, oh no, he can shoot. So he impressed that day here for sure.
Sometimes those workouts, and maybe they liked them all along, or maybe there was something they saw in that second workout that changed their mind, but certainly the athleticism. I asked him when he stopped playing track and field, and he said, well, they wanted me to start learning the high jump, and then I stopped then. And then you see him like get up for this massive dunk right over there. So that athletic skills did not leave him at all on the field.
I do think another part of this is the age. And he's only 19 and 22. That's a big difference in NBA minds. In particular, where do they think Zhaire Smith will be if he played 4 years at Villanova? And what would he look like? That's a big part of their decision, and that's all goes into this.
Yeah.
And right, and where the Sixers' needs are now versus where they might need, or what type of roster spot might open up 2 or 3 years from now, depending on what shakes out with how the team looks going into the fall.
And then he's much younger. That's all part of this.
And that's part of what there was intrigue with Kevin Knox in that situation too, of how young are these guys. And you look, in the core is so young with the Sixers, with Mikal barely out of being a teenager. It fits with this very young system that they have.
And we also can't forget that they're picking up a future asset as well, and not a bad one.
that is something that really should not be overlooked in any of this. A future pick like that, there could be a major trade made, and you never, like, you see those trades, you're like, where did that first round pick come from? And you're like, oh, that was 5 years ago in this trade that I kind of forgot about, and then here we are now. So you never know where that pick can end up. That is sometimes just as valuable as the player that you get with the actual trade.
In particular, if it's a good first round pick, we don't know what it'll turn out to be in 21, but there wasn't much difference in terms of those two kids right now. Right. So they evaluated, they got the guy they wanted, and here's a first round pick. I mean, that's smart.
It's good value. All right, active night, busy night. Jess Camerato, NBC Sports Philadelphia, thank you very much. All right, so I believe we have a one-on-one interview with Zhaire Smith after his first workout with the 76ers about a week and a half ago. When you look at this past season, when you got moved into the starting lineup, what clicked at that point in January, midway for the season for you guys that helped things get rolling for you?
Despite the Zach Smith injury, we just had to play together because we lost a big piece, so everybody had to step their game up.
Did you surprise yourself at all with what you were able to do?
I did. I really did surprise myself.
You put up really efficient numbers on both ends of the court. Can you give me a summary of where you think your skill set is at right now offensively, and then flip it over to the defensive side of the floor?
Offensively, I can be really aggressive, but passive a little bit, so I got to continue to be more aggressive. And defensively, I can go out 1 through 3, and pick and rolls and everything. And pretty good on defense, though. I think that's my strength.
You told the media group that you view yourself as someone who prides himself on defense. Have you always been a defense-first guy? When did you gain some confidence and start to really refine your defensive game?
Yeah, I've always been a really good defensive guy. When I first started playing basketball in 5th grade, that's all I did was just block shots.
As far as your overall package, what's been the major things you've wanted to showcase in these workouts?
My ability to handle the ball, come off screens and make the right play.
All right, Zhaire, thanks so much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Zhaire came in to work out with the Sixers twice during that time, showed off a lot of athleticism while he was with the team. He is someone who's projected to give a lot of defensive contributions early on from day one. Also, he has a lot of upside considering he's one of the youngest players in the draft at 19 years old. But as you could imagine, a lot of Twitter reactions after the official announcement that the 76ers traded Mikal Bridges to the Phoenix Suns for Zhaire Smith, along with a 2021 first-round draft pick from the Miami Heat, as we take a look at what some of the analysts are saying on Twitter around the league. Dan Dickey saying that this was the guy, Zhaire Smith, close to star potential in the draft, with Kevin O'Connor adding that it's an excellent trade for the Sixers, saying that Smith is a better prospect than Bridges, and pointing out that that 2021 draft pick could be a great trade chip down the road. Jack Hyman calling Zhaire Smith a potential two-way force, saying that Philly is getting the premier athlete in this draft. Now, speaking to the media after the trade was officially announced, Zhaire said that Brett, he reminds him of Kawhi Leonard. That's it for now, but make sure you join our conversation online by tweeting directly to the Sixers or leaving a comment below. Brian, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Marissa. Awesome having you check out everything social tonight. Social set? I don't know. Personal set? We try to have a social set here.
That's it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right on top with that.
I'm going to say, I'm marking this in my mind. It's 9:57 in the East. I'm trying to gauge at what point of the night to start to get a little bit punchy. I'm not quite there yet. I think maybe second round. I know that when you were out there on the sideline, true, 2-minute picks. I know when you coach on the sideline, doesn't matter where you've been, the jacket always comes off at some point. I don't know, second round.
And I try not to sit down. So I'm gonna try to keep my jacket off and not sit down.
All right.
Figuratively speaking.
Of course, of course. 76ers do have a second pick in the first round. It is number 26. All right, why don't we get you caught up to date on what's been happening as we have dissected the news that The 76ers acquire Zhaire Smith and a future first-round pick from the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Mikal Bridges, who the Sixers originally picked at number 10. Dante DiVincenzo going 17 to Milwaukee. Right after him, Lonnie Walker to the Spurs. You like that?
I think Lonnie Walker should be really happy. I think he could be the guard version of Kawhi Leonard.
All right,
really
that's
talented.
Not a bad profile to potentially have. You got Kevin Huerter from Maryland going to the Hawks. Josh Okogie going to the Timberwolves. Grayson Allen to the Jazz at 21. Chandler Hutchinson out of Boise State to Chicago at 22. And Aaron Holiday, obviously the younger brother of former 76er Drew. He just went number 23 to the Pacers. You got the Trailblazers and the Lakers at 24 and 25. And the 76ers are back. Anyone that's jumping out in the front of your mind as far as who could be potential takers at 26?
Well, what's really hard to know, Brian, is what the Sixers really think about their ability to re-sign J.J. Redick, Bellinelli, free agents. It's hard to see. I think with the 10th pick, they went with a really good player that they know is part of it. Do they think this 26 guy is somebody that's going to be part of what they do? You would think they need shooting, but they took a guard already. Do you take another guard that shoots, a backup point guard to go along? And there's, I love Javon Carter from West Virginia. High assist, incredible defender, 40% three-point shooter, but doesn't have the measurables. But there's
back-to-back defensive player of the year nationally, not just in his conference. You can't.
Crazy.
Got to have something there to it.
But that's the hard part. There's a lot of guys who probably are not projected as frontline NBA players that are shooters. Or then do you go with someone like Mitchell Robinson, a 7-footer that arguably is as talented as anybody in the draft, but obviously has a checkered past. But 7 feet, runs, jumps. You can get him at 26. He plays for Connor down in Delaware, and you got someone that can back up Embiid.
So you look at the 76ers roster and where playing time might be available for next year, and already now, I mean, you have one first-rounder. Might be hard to find those minutes, but it was interesting that Elton Brand, who's now going to be in his 2nd season as the general manager of the Delaware Bluecoats, something that he spoke about recently, that as far as what he's been focused on lately, and of course that speaks to a certain extent what the Sixers have been looking at, is how to manage spots 12 through 15 on an NBA roster. Now 16 and 17, of course, they're two-way players, so that's that. But you look at what Golden State did in the postseason. They certainly have a great surrounding cast, but someone like a Quinn Cook comes in the early rounds with Steph Curry hurt. He had G League time with Santa Cruz, makes an impact. So I think the Sixers, they seem focused on what they can do at 12 through 15, how they can better develop those players by way of the G League. So
I'm not familiar with this rule. If someone's on your roster at 12th man, he has an NBA contract, you can send them down?
No limit cap on that, and then you have the two-way slots at 16 and 17.
Yeah, sure.
Designate some assignments.
That's great. And I do think the NBA is becoming more apparent to me anyway, that they're more aware of the advantages of doing that. Quinn Cook's a great example. People just thought he was a D-League player. He helped them win a championship. And I think the Sixers are getting to the point where we're looking for pieces that if someone goes down for a week or two, we can have no real fall off. I think that's what this pick could be.
I think that when you look at what we've seen so far tonight and Zhaire Smith, and we've talked about it, how Mikal Bridges, feel-good story, great player, to take nothing away from him. And that adds perhaps some of the initial reaction you might have had when you hear the news, like, oh, this was stars aligning, it couldn't have worked out more perfectly. Zhaire Smith may be someone that you don't see the full package, the end product quite yet, but that goes back to what we've seen with Brett Brown's time here as head coach for the last 5 years, the development factor.
Well, the big part of all this, they pay a lot of money to try to get this right. It would have been easy, as we talked about, to take the local product. Everyone was happy, the fan base is happy, but the reality of it is that not necessarily what's the best choice is, and all the research and development and innovation that goes into figuring out what's right. They like Zhaire Smith, and that's what they're paid to do. And I think he's really talented. I don't know him well enough, but they obviously did their research enough to think that he's worth it.
Tough guy, determined guy. We played that one-on-one. We heard from Jess Camerato about some of the insights into his past. Someone with freakish potential, great athleticism, and a defense-first mindset. And that fits here as well. From a coaching standpoint, schematically, we talk so much about what Brett Brown has done from a leadership standpoint and how he's persevered through tough times. But as we talk about schematics, I kind of think that gets undersold a little bit with Brett. What do you like about the way he runs the team?
All right, so this is, Brad Stevens is a good friend of mine. There's so much talked about Brad and his X and O and how he did such a great job in the playoffs, in particular against the Sixers. See, I saw it a whole other way. I saw a coach with an incredible young team, which as a coach, I'm watching for how he's tactically going about it. And the innovation that Brett not only did that playoff round, but the whole season, using a 6'10" point guard, playing 7 games in a row without your starting center, and winning them all by playing, all of a sudden playing this small ball with Bellinelli and Ilyasova, where no one wanted them in the league, and you have the best record in terms of win streak going into the playoffs. That's the strength of Brett Brown. I think there's as much creativity and understanding of how to get the most out of his players that he has than anybody else in the league.
He really has been able to, as we've said, in this, is this 76ers draft live? Of course it is, but we try to bring some objectivity to this. It's like the vision that Brett has had, how he's gone about trying to fulfill it, and the players he's developed. It's coming to fruition so far. And I think the point you make about Bellinelli and Ilyasova, 2 guys picked up off the buyout market, they were as important pieces to helping the Sixers through that, what ended up being 17 straight win streak, as any 2 guys. Anthony Simons.
Anthony Simons is one of the unknowns a little bit, straight out of academy. Did not go to college last year, decided to go to an academy. Talented, long, athletic. No idea if he can play in the NBA, from what I saw.
He's a guy part of the Team USA development program for under 19-year-olds. Anthony, he was named after Penny Hardaway, and then he actually played for Penny Hardaway when I think Hardaway was with the Team USA Select. And why did he not play in college last year? There was the issue with Louisville, and he was set, if I'm not mistaken, to go to Louisville, and then obviously what happened there. So Simons decided not to play college this past season. I'll be curious to see going forward just how much the G League gets used by some guys now, bypassing that first year.
I think now the G League is, if you look at some of the teams, not necessarily, maybe Sixers, but building arenas, infrastructure around the D League teams, kind of almost like the model for baseball, where you build a nice stadium and you got a practice facility and you put money into it. If that's the bottom 7 guys on your roster thinking we're going to utilize that, it's a huge tool. And it seems like that the NBA's learned, if we're going to draft younger, which coming down the road is going to be right out of high school again.
Right.
That's another piece that we need this.
We heard from Connor Johnson earlier in the stream. He's now the head coach of the Blue Coats down in Delaware, about the synergy and parallels that are going to exist between the 76ers and in Delaware. And that's been the case in past years. But the crazy thing is that there's still a couple teams that don't have a one-to-one affiliation in the G League. For example, Sixers last year had in Delaware a guy named Devin Robinson who played at Florida, and Robinson was acquired by the Washington Wizards. Wizards didn't have their own G League team, so he spends the whole year in the Sixers development system. Now, he may not end up with the Sixers now. Maybe there's a chance down the road where that happens. But still, the big point is if you've got an asset and a prospect that you value, he's not in your development system.
No. And Washington, if I'm not mistaken, has one next year.
Correct. They're one of the teams that is adding.
All right.
76ers go with Zhaire Smith, and they pick up a future first-round pick To be determined at a later date after trading with the Phoenix Suns. We are standing by for pick number 26. On the clock right now, the Los Angeles Lakers at number 25. You've been doing this, Steve, for quite some time. Who've been some of the best talents you have faced either as an assistant coach, head coach in college, that have then gone on to have stellar, if not more than that, NBA careers?
Our year at Cornell that we went to the Sweet 16, we played a Kentucky team, which I thought was the most talented in the last 25 years.
I mean, especially in hindsight now.
Cousins.
Yep.
2 years later is an all-star max player. John Wall, all-star max, and then guard Bledsoe. There are 3 other draft choices on that team as well. One made by Patrick Patterson.
Right.
And then Miller, and I'm forgetting his first name. Long, athletic shooter, still in the league. And Daniel Orton, who did not make the league. All draft choices, but those 3, that was the most talented team. Now, my years at Boston College, we played Duke and went against all their great players every year. But to be honest, Cousins jumped out at me as a guy that big that moved that, like almost like a tiny dancer, like just tiptoed around and was so athletic and smooth, yet almost 300 pounds and 6'11".
Do you think there's something to be said for the fact that coaches, whether it's John Calipari at Kentucky, Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, is there a skill to being able to integrate talent like that, bring it all together, even if you've only got them for such a finite period of time? Is that something that is more of a challenge than some people make it out to be?
I think Mike Krzyzewski would be a great one to ask that because he's done it both ways. I think John's amazing what he's done, to be quite honest with you. I think it's really hard. The egos and the personal agendas and the family's aspirations at that age and what's going to happen in 8 months and what are you doing for me, yet still trying to win, it's nearly impossible. And it hasn't worked every year. But John's ability, I just remember thinking that team played really hard with those kids. And I was surprised. That almost surprised me. I knew they were really talented, but he had them play really hard, which that's a real credit to Calipari.
76ers picking up Zhaire Smith, guard out of Texas Tech. We've been reacting to that throughout the night. Someone with youth on his side, with high upside and potential. And the Sixers, in just a few minutes, they will be on the clock once again for pick number 26. The Sixers have had a lot of draft hauls in recent years. I want to ask you about Joel Embiid. Can you take me back to the time when he arrived on the scene and what you were hearing about him then and what the expectations were ultimately for him?
Well, if you remember correctly, like he didn't play a lot at Kansas, injury.
Right.
And then we went back through the injuries. And I don't know, and I give the Sixers credit at the time, like it wasn't a definite that he was the guy to pick then. It looks like now, but there's question marks about his health for sure. And then just how far along he was, because he hadn't played really any kind of high-level basketball. But I think we all saw that if this did click, you're going to have a heck of a player. But there's a lot of guys you say that about.
Who are, I mean, you're dealing with college-age kids at Penn as the Lakers pick Mo Wagner out of Michigan, 3-year big man from the Wolverines, a guy who had a really solid career.
It's a little surprising. I love Mo. I think he's awesome. I mean, that's an offensive player. Not a rebounder, not a defensive guy. So Sixers are next.
They're on the
clock.
clock.
Not they would have taken him, but could we go with like, let's go get an outlier.
Sure.
Let's go get somebody maybe that's not athletic enough, but really brings a skill to us that we can fit in. I don't know who that is, but Mo Wagner just made me think of that. I'm still intrigued a little bit by Mitchell Robinson.
Jalen Brunson is a player that's been projected in this 20s round at this stage.
That would be an incredible pick, I think, if that's something they feel, because I do feel Jalen Brunson is going to be in this league a long time. And I'm also pretty sure his team's going to win. And he's going to be in the court at the end of the game. Now, I don't know everything else that goes into figuring out if he's an NBA player. I know that, though. It's just, that's what he does. And I've watched him, as I said, I got a little window into it because he comes in the summers and play against our guys. But this may be a wild card pick. I don't know if there's a fit pick right now for the Sixers. Like, what's a fit pick?
Right.
Like, we got a lot.
Yeah.
And we got all this open free agent stuff and the ability to re-sign a couple guys. So if they want a future backup or a future star, if you can get them straight and you want to do it, then Mitchell Robinson's an interesting pick.
Some other names that are out there, we mentioned Jalen Brunson, Javon Carter, a guy who the 76ers brought in, Shake Milton. Just thinking of guys the Sixers worked out.
I love Javon Carter. Like, I think he's an NBA-ready player, but he doesn't do the measurables. 6'2", probably normal wingspan, good athlete, but a great defender, a great shooter. He made over 100 threes at 40%, but it gets overlooked. But
what do you know about D'Anthony Melton, a guy who was targeted to play at USC, did 2 years ago, and then he did not play last year with the Sixers? They had him in earlier this week.
Right, and he's a talented guy. I think is around the FBI investigation. Saw him in the summer. Looks the part, Brian. That's all you can say, because there's nothing else that you can go on. He looks the part.
Something to be said for that.
That may be good in the airport occasionally, and if it works on the court, it's great. He may be really talented. I don't. No one hasn't. You have to really do your homework to say you think he's ready. The other thing is, I think people think you can get him much later.
The Sixers, of course, do have a stash of picks in the second round tonight. Officially, they have picks number 38, 39, 56, and 60. We are awaiting pick number 26 on the clock for the 76ers. Do they roll the dice? Do they go for a project? Do they get someone who might have some skills that are able to help them right now? But as we've been talking about, one of the themes this year is that the roster is in a different constituted spot. They can afford, I would say there's margin for error at a spot like this right now where they have guys who have claimed spots. And,
how about Bates Diop?
A four-year man out of Ohio State. Excellent player there.
It's a little outlier
guy.
in the sense that he's not a great three-point shooter, but he's a rebounder, does a lot of other things. I think he's an NBA-ready player. The ceiling may be not too high, but that may be someone they consider.
Do you know much about Shake Milton? He was a guy who was here for a visit and a workout?
I don't, to be quite honest. I don't.
I mean, that's
I know
the thing.
Shake's a cool nickname.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so I read this. People may know this. I found this interesting. His dad played, I want to say maybe at Texas A&M, or I could be completely wrong where his dad played. Yeah. His dad was a player, and his nickname was the Milkman. So the kid got the nickname Shake.
That's awesome.
It does have to be so hard to just maintain information on guys at this level. Somehow the scouts are able to do it. We're going to go to Marissa Pilla right now to.
I give you one more name.
All right,
Gary Trent Jr.
All right, Gary Trent Jr.
Shooter.
Out of Duke, son of a pro player. We'll go over to Marissa right now.
Are on the clock right now, but we want to remind all of you at home just to keep contacting us through Twitter, through comments. We want to hear from you. We want you to know that we are your exclusive site to get all the inside access to everything the Sixers are doing, taking a look at some of the things we've tweeted out earlier tonight. We want you to stay engaged with us. Tweet directly to the Sixers. Send us your questions. We can have Brian answer your questions for you on air. If you want to hear from us, if you want your opinion to be heard, make sure you stay connected with us on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you're watching this stream. But make
So much Marissa Pilla on top of all social activity concerning the 76ers tonight. Just seconds away from making pick number 26 in the draft. This has been an area where in previous season, the 76ers, they have dipped into the international waters. Obviously, last year in the mid-20s, they picked up Anžeļs Pašeknieks. 2 years ago, they went with Timothée Luau-Cabarrot at number 24 and Furkan Korkmaz at number 26. The 76ers active trading the 10 pick to Phoenix to pick up Zhaire Smith at number 16. And we're looking over the war room. Believe it or not, these shades have been drawn. And the activity in there, I cannot wait to hear from Brett Brown about some of the things that played out over the course of tonight. Maybe how busy the phones have been, where they might have had opportunities to move. Jalen Brunson is a guy who's available. Steve has mentioned Mitchell Robinson, a raw talent, Javon Carter out of West Virginia. Or do we start to see more teams going towards the international round?
Well, let's think this may be a stash. You know, just they're up against that max contract. If they take on another contract right now, that may be something they don't want to do. Take a young foreign player, keep him over there. Now I got to get my pronunciation guide out.
That's right. We do have to pull that up for sure.
And I watched film on a couple. Most are big, young, underdeveloped guys who probably have a chance, but no one knows.
One guy the Sixers had in last year for the workouts in 2017, this guy Elia Kobo from France, played in the top league over there in the LNB. He was projected high, but now we're getting word on what the number 26 pick is going to be. Landry Shamet.
There.
Steve Donahue was high on this man coming in.
That's a good one. That's a terrific pick.
Let's go. Let's hear about it.
You know, really good size for a guard. He can handle the ball, but he gets his own. An elite shooter, scores on all 3 levels. Just a terrific basketball player. I think the only reason he's probably not higher on people's lists is he played at Wichita State and not a higher level, but also just developing, still younger, physically not exactly where he'll be in a year or two. But we heard Coach Lang liked him as well.
Landry Shamet, wow, from Wichita State, 3-year man there. He led the American Athletic Conference in three-point shooting efficiency last year, just over 44%. Hit 84 threes, so you try and find a balance, I guess, at a spot like that. Do you see some guy with potential? Do you go for a need? We talked about adding a shooter to the program, and he's someone where it sounds like if you just watched him on film, took away the jersey, and just looked for a player, he's someone who passes the eye test in a big way.
Yeah, he fits the NBA now. And people, like, he would play in a Golden State system, and he wouldn't miss a beat. Can get his shot quickly, plays with the ball, without the ball. Great decision maker, got some toughness to him. It's not physically like that, but that's I think I apologize for not mentioning it before, but that's a terrific pickup. I'm excited.
All right.
And the fans should be.
I like it. I like it. So that's the thing. We, at least for this point in time, as we learned earlier tonight, nothing is set in stone until it is, of course, set in stone. But Landry Shamet out of Wichita State, a proven three-point shooter at that level. Sixers have been busy making their decisions tonight. So, yeah, that's a guy who, you know, he's got the stroke. He's got some build to him. He's a mature player, having spent 3 years there. The exact type of player you think you would like to use the number 26 pick on.
I agree with you. I'm surprised a little bit that he
seemed like he went under the radar in general.
Yeah, like there wasn't enough talk about him, I think. And we talked about him with Billy before this event as well. And he really liked him here as a shooter. And he watched him on tape. I think it's a great pickup. I think that fits a need, to be quite honest. You don't know if they had to sign a max contract and J.J. Redick can't be agreeable to what they want, then here's a young player that what he does is make shots from far. And that's what you want. That's his pedigree. That's what he's used to doing. I think it's a great pickup.
How long have you found, probably depends on the player, what things help the transition shooting threes at the college level to the NBA level? I mean, they moved it back a bit.
You know, you're funny. You were saying, like, what translates to pro from college. Three-point shooting is erratic if you look at certain guys. Certain guys were elite three-point shooters in college, can't get their shot off in the pro. Other guys, like, I'll give you an example, Kawhi Leonard was a 28% three-point shooter. I was second in the league a couple of years ago in three-point shooting. I don't know if that translates exactly how well you do.
Landry Shamet, as we look into some of his numbers, as something else, an over 81% free throw shooter. Do you think that that's a telling? I mean,
Yes.
A lot of guys talk about that, and we should probably set the context too. And if I misspeak, you can correct me. For so many of the points of emphasis the NBA is going to offensively, whether it's driving to the basket, three-point shots, free throws, high-efficiency offense, you've been on. That has been your philosophy for quite some time, right?
Correct.
So, get into some of the aspects of that, first, what turns you on to that? What makes you a believer in that? And how can that help you maybe project a little bit?
Well, first of all, foul shooting you got touch tells me that the young man, the player, has the ability to poise himself enough to go to a foul line. He's worked on a skill, and he makes, like, there's a lot to be said when you're evaluating someone. If this kid was a 71% foul shooter, he's like, what's going on? He tells you that he's worked on it. He's got the ability to relax and do it. So the philosophy is just, you try to get a layup or dunk or get fouled doing it. Getting fouled to do it is important. I think the great teams make great decisions at the rim. We have what we call the 95% rule. If you have to be 95% certain when you attack the rim that you're going to make it or get fouled. If not, we have mechanisms in place that we teach all the time. Most good teams do this. Second one, we want an in-rhythm standstill three. Even at the NBA level, shots off the dribble, 38% inside the arc, 31% past the arc off the dribble. Hence, you want your feet set. And the last thing you want to do is try to get extra possessions by offensive rebounds. 95% rule comes in there. So when we recruit, we kind of try to evaluate. We try to see, can guys attack the rim and get fouled and make it, obviously, get it? And how good are they in decision-making when they do attack the rim? And can we coach them that point of their game?
I like it. Clearly something that's worked and has become more and more popular as we have gone along. In a little bit, I think we're going to hear from Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic. He is standing by as we react to the news of the night. Hey, it involved a family member of his. His cousin is Mikal Bridges. I'm going to feel bad like asking him about this because I'm sure he's talked a lot about it this evening, but just the emotional roller coaster of a night like this. But the bottom line is we know that the Sixers going into this, they were going to be bold and aggressive and confident in their decision making. They would have not made a decision, whether it was who they were drafting, whom they traded for, if they did not feel like it was the right fit for the long-term vision of this team going forward into the future. As we look ahead to what's coming up next, we're going to go to
Celtics, huh?
Whew.
Robert Williams.
Okay.
Big, athletic.
Yeah.
They probably need some size. They got all those perimeter wings. Probably the move they'll make.
The Celtics, it's not going away.
No.
I mean, as someone who grew up watching this sport, do you like that the rivalry is now in this spot? I think it's great.
It's awesome.
It's great.
I told these guys, I went to Game 5 at the Garden. I just happened to be up there recruiting. I went to Sixers Celtics. I thought the atmosphere up there was incredible and had a lot to do with Sixers Celtics because I didn't think it was that way. Cleveland and Boston the next series. That was Sixers Celtics. It's great.
Some great energy and atmosphere in that playoff series. The Boston Celtics do take Robert Williams, and now let's check in with Marissa Pilla over in the social lounge.
Landry Shamet considered to be one of the best shooters in the draft right now. He has a lot of upside. He's someone that comes in with a true underdog mentality, has overcome a lot. Draft that no matter where he goes, no matter what team he ends up on, he knows he's going to be able to prove himself as we take a look at what you, the fans, are saying about the Sixers' latest pick. Someone saying that the 76ers are killing this draft. Shamet fits well with Simmons, and Zhaire is a great prospect with ridiculous ceiling, joining a team with an ability for developing talent. Someone else saying Shamet got drafted to the 76ers. Super excited about that. Another good pick and another great pick for the 76ers. So a lot of excitement over their latest pick as the 76ers finish their draft selections for the first round of the 2018 NBA draft. But we'll be back with more social media coverage. Make sure to continue to tweet us, send us your questions, give us your thoughts, and we'll be sure to share it on air with everyone. Brian?
God works in weird
Marissa,
ways.
thank you very much.
Maybe the
That
best thing,
update
get
from
away
the
from the
Social
city.
Lounge. Great job
This is
throughout
always
the
too
night.
much.
A familiar voice for sure, and I think it's a good thing, an increasingly familiar face. Devon Givens from 97.5, The Fanatic, part of the D&G show that was broadcasting live earlier tonight, you and Jeff Mosher. I mean, I don't want to ask.
Yes.
But I've got to ask, how's the night been? Devon is cousins with Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, a little bit up and down
Yeah.
when you look at how things went. Thanks guys for having me. First of all, up and down certainly when we saw how things started to unfold with Kevin Knox going number 9 and seeing that the possibility of Mikal going to 10 to the Philadelphia 76ers, it was just great. And once his name was called and seeing all the excitement at the table in New York at Barclays, it was just fantastic. And then 25 minutes later, things just turned completely around and trying to take everything in on what's going on. So I immediately had to flip the switch on, trying to project him now with the young Phoenix Suns team that had the #1 overall pick in this draft, and taking DeAndre Ayton, but also a budding star that I think we all can agree is very, very good in Devin Booker. So with a nice young core of Booker, Ayton, and hopefully with Mikal sticking around there, I guess I can root for the Phoenix Suns a little bit now.
Well, the other thing on his side of it, it's obviously a team that really wanted him.
Sure.
Because they gave up something for him. It wasn't just like we swapped here. They wanted him. That to me means a lot. And it may be a situation where he's going to get a chance to grow, make mistakes, and still play. Here, under this microscope, in this city, with so much attention on him, maybe it would have been a lot more difficult for him to grow as a player.
Easy for me to say as a family member, but I think he would have been able to handle it. But you're right, going into a young Phoenix situation where Josh Jackson, I left him out, so that's another player that they have with them. But, Coach, looking at Mikal, I know we're going to get to the Sixers selections as well, but looking at Mikal, having seen him over the years, what do you see him as a player now adapting to the NBA?
So I said it when we picked him, I think he's someone that understands what he does well right now. He can fill a role. He's 3rd in usage on a national championship team, yet he's the best player on the team in a lot of ways. That's a strength. Now, the NBA will recognize that. His ability to continue to grow as a ball handler, getting to the rim, getting fouled, getting to the foul line, making shots, those aspects. Because right now, they're going to get in him. And that's going to be part of his maturation process, how well he handles that. But he defends multiple positions, 1 through 4 for sure. And there's not a chance that with Villanova, having done that for 4 years with Jay, switch everything, that's a strength in the NBA as well.
Yeah, so, well, I guess we have to shift our focus now to the West Coast. It was a movie, it was a dream story, but unfortunately things changed. But he is in the NBA, happy for him, proud of him, excited to see him play on this stage.
That's great.
We'd expect nothing less but professional insights and an approach of a professional nature in a situation like this from Devon. So let's talk about the Sixers pick, Zhaire Smith at number 16.
Yeah, kind of surprising, to be perfectly honest with you. We understand the one thing that pops out with him is the athleticism. We know that he is a super athlete, probably arguably the best athlete in this draft. So he's worked out for the team twice during the draft process. They obviously saw something that they liked in him to make a move like this. But at his size, at 6'3", 6'4", who is he? Who is he ultimately going to become? Can he get his shot off in the NBA? Can he develop the shot overall to be someone that has to be watched and guarded closely on the NBA level? His handle, didn't have to handle as much with Texas Tech because he had 2 guards with him that handled the ball very well, very crafty guards, veteran guards at that. But when you look at the unique situation that the Sixers have with the 6'10" point guard and Ben Simmons, you have the luxury of doing different things with your lineup. So they saw something there with his defense, the athleticism, grow him as a player, as Coach Brett Brown likes to say, in the program. And you couple him with Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons when Markelle Fultz comes back, and you might have something in terms of a 1-2-3 punch overall in your backcourt with those three players.
Jacob Evans from Cincinnati going to Golden State. Dramatic night, but as we've been talking about, 76ers also pick up a highly valuable future asset down the road in that first-round draft pick.
Yeah, that 2021 first rounder could be highly coveted, especially if they look to do some other things in regards to maybe in the draft in the future, or even this off season when you talk about adding another asset with that 2021 first round pick, sending to another team for a veteran established player. If you want to make that next step that Brett Brown has already alluded to, that he wants to add a player like that to help them get over the top in that next level.
There's a guy in San Antonio that maybe that will work for.
Maybe.
Right.
Has a little familiarity with them as well.
True. So, I mean, as we look ahead with Zhaire Smith, if the roster stays at the very minimum constituted as it was mostly at the end of last season, what do we see him doing? I know you said that we don't quite know what he's going to be yet, but will that largely be dictated by him, do you think? Do you have a general sense of what we might see from him in terms of his involvement?
Sure. I think we can look at it a little more than we've seen from Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot very early on. Again, a later pick in the first round where Zhaire, you give up a player and you bring in another asset to get him. So you would assume that he is going to play at this level. I do think, though, that maybe we will see some blue coats in his future in Delaware with the G League team, just to get him some reps to work on some of those things that we've talked about, or some of his weaknesses, the same as we've seen with Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot and Furkan Korkmaz, to help develop him overall to become a better player, to use them how they want to use him within the structure of the offense. So I would say maybe Seltz, if he is with the big team, overall, maybe a 10 to 15 minute a night type of player with the roster that they do have. If J.J. Redick does, in fact, come back, you know J.J. Redick's going to play at least 30 minutes a night. You have to factor in T.J. McConnell, Markelle Fultz, where does he fit in? So I think they'll ease him in slowly unless he just does something out of the blue that really forces Brett Brown and the coaching staff's hand to put him on the floor.
You know, it's for a team, this is probably one of the most unique situations in NBA history, that a team has this many young draft choices because of what we've done over the last few years, that right now we still have question marks because we have room for 2 max contracts still. Like this.
And a 52-win team at that.
I know. So this is, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, that's the truth. I don't think you can put pieces in. This is fluid. And this could change July 1st.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Well, guys, we had the screen behind us go dark, which probably should have been our first indication that something is afoot. And as we look around here behind us, you may start to see members of the media remove themselves from the snack table. Great snack table. Can't blame them for being there. And
the donuts are good, by the way.
I'm going to have to get there.
We don't get a break here. We're grinding it.
I'll sneak one over.
We are awaiting Brett Brown. Oh, nope. False alarm.
False alarm.
I thought we were going to get
this
Brett
guy's
Brown.
giving me the travel sign. I don't know what that means.
I think that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
So what we're going to do is we're going to step aside for a moment. Brett Brown, at some point we're going to hear from him. But there you see it on your screen. Follow us, engage, interact. Marissa will read your stuff. Thanks for being with us and hanging out as we head towards the end of the first round. Picks coming up in the second round, and at some point, Brett Brown. Don't go anywhere.